Sophia stares wide-eyed in absolute shock as her entire world abruptly shatters around her. Albert casually sits on the couch and declares his love for Lady Bianca, completely devastating Sophia, who listens helplessly by the door. Bianca's ambitious parents excitedly accept Lord Albert's proposal, considering it a massive honor for their daughter to catch his favor. Tears streaming down her face, Sophia flees the hallway as Albert coldly requests the immediate annulment of his previous engagement. Bianca joyfully grips Albert's hand, absolutely thrilled that they can finally be together forever. Retreating into the deep shadows of a dusty room, a devastated Sophia violently slams the heavy door shut behind her. Trembling in the dim light, she vividly recalls how 7 years ago Baron Lanish heroically saved Count Franz. Back then, young Albert stood formally as the proud grandson of Count Franz. As a direct result of the rescue, young Sophia was locked into an unequal status engagement with the wealthy boy. Tragedy soon shattered her world when her parents perished in a carriage accident and Count Franz passed away from old age. Her greedy uncle immediately claimed the Baron title, bringing his wicked wife and her cousin Bianca into the estate. Looking back at the sprawling Lanish estate, she realizes that her new family quickly squandered most of the family fortune. She had naively believed that her ongoing engagement to the wealthy Albert would keep her relatives from casting her out onto the streets. Realizing her absolute foolishness, she understands they can simply erase an undebuted girl like her and publicly claim Albert was always engaged to Bianca. Downstairs, a satisfied Albert formally bids the treacherous family farewell for the day. Refusing to break down entirely, Sophia tightly clenches her fist and orders herself to get a hold of the situation. With sudden, desperate determination, she forcefully drags a heavy hidden trunk out from beneath the floorboards. She swiftly throws the ancient trunk open to reveal its long-forgotten contents. Inside lies a glowing black stone, triggering a deeply buried memory of a voice urging her to listen. A man's voice echoes in her mind, explaining that while their house relies on antiques, the outside world uses magic devices fueled by circulating mana. He gently warns her that normal people can effortlessly operate these devices just by touching a switch. Apologizing for her unique condition, he places the black stone in her hand and begs her not to let her lack of mana crush her spirit. Her beloved father warmly promises that holding this magic stone will allow her to use any magical device just like a normal person. Snapped violently back to the present, her wicked aunt corners her and gleefully announces the official annulment of her engagement. Her uncle scoffs coldly from the doorway, demanding she understand her fate as Sophia silently nods in submission. With zero hesitation, the cruel family viciously orders the useless wretch to get out of their house. Collapsed on the floor, she endures their cruel sneers as they mock her for being nothing more than expensive baggage that wasted their money. Her uncle's cold eyes narrow as he forbids her from taking a single item, demanding she leave with only her body. Head bowed in mock defeat, she hollowly thanks them for everything and turns to walk away into the unknown. Suddenly, Bianca fiercely grabs her arm, demanding to know what she shoved in her pocket before violently ordering her thrown out. Sneering with cruel amusement, Bianca mocks the small black object in Sophia's hand, calling it her beloved scrap stone. Leaning in closer, Bianca cruelly taunts Sophia by pointing out that she couldn't even survive without the pathetic object. Gripping her heavy suitcase, a panicked Sophia flees into the night, leaving the only home she has ever known behind. Slumping against a cold brick wall, she stares blankly into the darkness and wonders what she is supposed to do now. Checking her meager coin purse, she realizes her carefully saved childhood allowance is barely enough to buy 3 meals. Knowing she desperately needs to find work, anxiety immediately washes over her as she remembers her crippling disadvantage. Sitting under the glow of a street lamp, she laments that her magic stone is nearly depleted, rendering her completely unable to operate the world's magic tools for any potential job. Glancing down the dark and empty cobblestone streets, she realizes night has fully fallen and she urgently needs to find a safe place to sleep. With no money for an inn and the city streets too dangerous to sleep on unguarded, she desperately searches her mind for an isolated sanctuary. Suddenly remembering the royal forest, she reasons that its magical barrier designed to keep wild beasts out will probably keep dangerous people away too. Pushing her way through the thick foliage, the exhausted girl drags her heavy suitcase deep into the moonlit woods. Wincing as sharp branches scrape against her skin, she cautiously navigates the dense, shadowy undergrowth. Breaking through the brush, her eyes light up with immense relief as she stumbles upon a clear, flowing spring of water. Cupping her trembling hands, She eagerly drinks the freezing liquid and sighs at the delicious, life-saving taste. Wiping her mouth, a heavy sigh escapes her lips as the sheer exhaustion of her ordeal finally begins to catch up with her. Collapsing onto the grassy bank, she removes her stiff shoes and winces at her terrible blisters, realizing the chaotic day had completely masked her physical pain. Overwhelmed by agonizing memories of her parents' death and her uncle's subsequent reign of abuse, she breaks down sobbing, questioning why her life has become endless suffering. Tears stream freely down her dirt-streaked face as she stares blankly at the rippling water, completely shattered by her own helplessness. Groaning softly, Sophia slowly stirs awake on the damp forest floor as the bright rays of morning sun filter through the canopy. She jolts awake in pure terror as a sharp, demanding voice suddenly orders her to identify herself. Gasping in shock, she freezes like a frightened rabbit as the cold, deadly tip of a silver sword is leveled directly at her face. Glaring down the length of the blade is a striking young knight, his piercing eyes analyzing her every movement with absolute suspicion. Stepping out from the foliage, a regal and smiling young man gently scolds the knight, Gilbert, noting that threatening a lady upon their first meeting is hardly proper. Despite Gilbert's hesitant protests, the regal young man asserts his royal authority and firmly orders the knight to sheath his weapon. Trembling violently as the blade is withdrawn, Sophia immediately kneels in the dirt and stammers out her full name to the imposing strangers. Bowing her head in utter submission, she sincerely apologizes for her incredible rudeness in trespassing into the royal forest without permission. The royal easily recognizes her family name, prompting Sophia to meekly clarify that she is the daughter of the former Baron Lanish. Arching an inquisitive eyebrow, the royal questions why a noblewoman of her status would be sleeping on the dirt like a vagrant. Too humiliated to admit she was cruelly cast aside by her own family, Sophia scrambles to put on her shoes and frantically promises to leave immediately. Startled by her sudden panic, the stoic knight reaches out in a brief moment of confusion as the terrified girl attempts to flee the scene. Peering nervously through her messy hair, Sophia stares in shock and timidly questions the armored man standing before her. The cheerful prince turns to his stoic, dark-haired companion and casually asks if he noticed anything unusual in the woods. Touching his chest, Gilbert gazes down at the bewildered Sophia and calmly lies to the prince that he saw absolutely nothing. The cheerful royal reasons that the ragged girl is merely a runaway rather than a dangerous assassin, advising her to return home quickly. Thanking them for their misplaced kindness, Sophia turns to leave, only for the prince to pointedly ask if she truly has a home to return to. Observing her battered state, Matthias concludes this is no simple runaway situation and notes Gilbert's equal confusion over her presence. Flashing a bright smile, Crown Prince Matthias loudly commands Gilbert Forster to take full responsibility for the mysterious girl. He officially orders the stoic knight to bring Lady Sophia into the Forster estate and personally oversee her care. Both Sophia and Gilbert stare in utter disbelief as the prince cheerfully drops his outrageous decree upon them. Sophia freezes in absolute panic as she tries to process the overwhelming command to be taken in by a powerful marquis household. Desperate to refuse the sudden royal whim, she begs the prince to wait, insisting she will only be a heavy burden to them. Ignoring her frantic pleas, Matthias teasingly asks if he should write an official royal order, prompting a resigned sigh from the defeated knight. Highly amused by the entire situation, the prince chuckles and remarks on what a highly unusual and entertaining find they made today. As Sophia nervously stammers out an excuse to leave, Matthias muses about how his light morning ride unexpectedly resulted in picking up a stray person. Gilbert firmly orders her to get on his horse, ignoring both Matthias's teasing and her frantic pleas to be left alone. Without waiting for her consent, the tall knight simply reaches down and effortlessly scoops Sophia up into his strong arms. Gasping in surprise, she is swiftly and firmly deposited onto the back of the massive steed. Before she can even settle, Gilbert casually slides off her worn shoes, stating she won't be needing them while riding. With Sophia secured in front of him, Gilbert grabs the reins as the prince cheerfully signals for their immediate return. The powerful warhorse suddenly breaks into a fast gallop, terrifying Sophia with its incredible rushing speed. Clinging tightly to the horse's mane in sheer terror, she feels Gilbert's reassuring presence behind her as he calmly promises she is safe. As the grand castle comes into view, Matthias parts ways with them while Gilbert assures the trembling girl it is only a short ride to his estate. Upon reaching a quiet relay point, the knight gently carries Sophia down from the horse and walks her toward a waiting carriage. Placing her securely inside the cabin, Gilbert instructs her to wait quietly while he officially escorts the Crown Prince to his chambers. Left completely alone with a strict order not to run, Sophia slumps in exhaustion as her mind swirls with the impossibility of a magicless girl staying with a marquis. Dark, anxious thoughts consume her as she tearfully wonders what will become of her, absolutely certain she will eventually be abandoned once again. The heavy carriage door suddenly opens, pulling her from her despair as the stoic knight returns to resume their journey. The grand carriage rattles loudly over the cobblestone streets as it makes its steady way toward the Forster estate. Sitting timidly across from him, Sophia nervously breaks the heavy silence to ask if she can please have her shoes back. Kneeling down, Gilbert ignores her anxious apology and gently examines her bare feet, commanding her to stay still as he treats her terrible blisters. Despite her initial fear when he suddenly drew his sword to hide something unsightly, she quickly realizes he doesn't seem like a bad person at all. She stares in absolute awe as they arrive at an incredibly elegant and beautiful mansion. While she marvels at the wonderfully refined servants and feels utterly unworthy of such care, her escort announces his return to Hans and orders her luggage taken to his room. Flustered, she desperately insists she can walk, but he tightly holds her and coldly orders her to stay still so he doesn't have to repeat himself. Stepping firmly onto the floorboards, a stern man formally demands that Sir Gilbert explain the sudden situation. Ignoring her frantic apologies, Gilbert introduces her as Lady Sophia Lanish and firmly orders her into the nearby bath, explaining that she is under their care by His Highness's strict command. For a brief moment, a strikingly gentle and reassuring smile crosses Gilbert's typically stoic face. Clutched tightly to her luggage with her heart pounding wildly, a heavily blushing Sophia stammers out a flustered thank you. The older servant openly questions how a baron's daughter could be found nearly collapsed, to which a troubled Gilbert admits he has absolutely no idea. A wave of pure shock washes over the older man when Gilbert grimly confesses that he couldn't see anything at all. The narrative reveals that Gilbert, a powerful vice-captain and magic knight, holds his esteemed rank largely due to his unique ability to read the memories and feelings of anyone he touches. Having possessed this natural telepathic gift since childhood, Gilbert reflects on how his extraordinary power often made the people around him deeply afraid. Staring thoughtfully at his gloved hand, he recalls that whenever he typically touches someone, his mind is flooded with information, yet with Sophia, he only felt the physical warmth of her slender wrist. His eyes narrow in intense focus as he realizes this unprecedented sensory silence is an absolute first for him. Gilbert calmly explains that his power strictly reads mana fluctuations, leading another stunned knight to conclude that Lady Sophia must possess absolutely zero magic. Noting that a life without magic means she cannot use basic tools, Gilbert asserts she must be treated with exceptional care, secretly wondering why she was found so ragged in the forest. Sipping his drink with an amused smirk, the other knight playfully calls out Gilbert's name. Chuckling knowingly, the knight grants Gilbert the morning off to escort Lady Sophia, requiring only that he attends the afternoon joint training session. While Gilbert looks utterly confused by his comrade's teasing amusement, Hans happily pivots to preparing a furnished room for Lady Sophia to comfortably rest. The elderly servant flashes a remarkably warm and knowing smile while trying to wave off the sudden implication. Gilbert internalizes that the strangely familiar, beaming smile completely eliminates any possibility of refusal. Standing alone in the bathroom, Sophia stares in total disbelief at the strange metallic contraption before her. She recognizes the antique fixtures with two familiar levers that draw hot water without magic, utterly bewildered to find such rare items here. Wiping away a nostalgic tear, a freshly cleaned Sophia timidly opens the door to find Gilbert waiting to escort her. Bowing her head politely as they walk down the quiet corridor, she earnestly thanks him for his immense kindness. She gasps in sudden surprise when Gilbert abruptly reaches out and touches a stray strand of her hair. Staring intently at the dripping strands, he calmly observes that her hair is still completely wet from the bath. Her eyes light up with pure, unadulterated amazement as she realizes her soaked hair has instantly become perfectly dry. Looking at him with profound wonder, she joyfully explains that she has never seen magic used in such a beautiful, harmless way before. A female examiner loudly bursts into laughter, vastly amused that a terrifying magic knight looks utterly helpless in the face of a sweet girl's innocent wonder. Waving her hands in frantic denial, Sophia insists her wounds are mere scratches, but a gentle female medic firmly states she was entrusted by His Highness to examine her injuries. Stepping in with quiet authority, His Highness urges her to accept the treatment since his own magic is completely incapable of healing physical injuries. Overwhelmed by the unexpected kindness, Sophia silently eats a provided meal while a maid kindly instructs her to rest once she finishes. Bowing respectfully, the maid wishes her a good rest before quietly excusing herself from the luxurious chamber. Left completely alone, Sophia stares in sheer disbelief at the grand bed as she suddenly realizes she is staying in the knight's personal bedroom. Meanwhile, back at the training grounds, Captain Abel dismisses Vice Captain Kevin for the day, prompting an energetic Gilbert to praise the amazing joint training session they just finished. Noticing his superior lingering behind, Captain Abel observes the vice captain and casually asks if he plans to stay late. Gesturing with his pen, the observant captain assures the white-haired knight that he is officially cleared to head home for the day. Taking him up on the offer, the vice captain turns to leave, prompting Abel to keenly observe that something heavy must be weighing on his usually decisive mind. Watching the vice captain briskly walk down the long stone steps, Abel wonders aloud why the normally composed man is in such an uncharacteristic hurry. Arriving swiftly at his estate, the anxious knight immediately asks his staff about Lady Sophia's condition and learns she is resting after a deeply exhausting day. Gently knocking on the ornate wooden door, he cracks it open and softly calls out her name into the quiet room. Stepping into the shadowy bedroom, he is immediately met with the unsettling sight of a completely empty, perfectly made canopy bed. Scanning the desolate room in confusion, a spike of panic hits him as he realizes she has utterly vanished. Turning sharply, he spots her small figure curled up elsewhere in the room, leaving him completely baffled as to why she isn't in the bed. Kneeling closely beside her sleeping form on the floor, he gently brushes her hair back and confirms his earlier suspicion that he cannot sense or read anything from her. Carefully lifting her into his arms, he notes that the only sensation radiating from her small frame is the harsh, biting chill of the cold night. Moving with practiced gentleness, the knight carries the freezing girl over to the large mattress and carefully tucks her beneath the thick, warm blankets. Gazing down at her peaceful, sleeping face, a sudden wave of unspoken relief and deep melancholy washes over his usually stoic features. Staring at her softly, he internally confesses that he has never held feelings for others before, wondering if his lost composure is simply because he uniquely cannot read her memories. Stirring from her deep slumber, Sophia slowly flutters her eyes open and groggily marvels at the heavenly sensation of being wrapped in soft clouds. Blinking away the sleep, she looks across the dim room and spots the knight quietly reading a book by the warm glow of a lamplight. Springing upright with a horrified gasp, she desperately apologizes to the knight for selfishly stealing his personal bed. Calmly closing his book, he reassures her that it is perfectly fine since he was the one who deliberately placed her there to sleep. Stepping closer, he dryly asks if she actually prefers sleeping on the hard floor, causing her to cover her mouth in utter embarrassment and vehemently deny it. The mattress shifts slightly as he takes a seat on the very edge of the bed, leaving the flustered Sophia stammering nervously. Noticing her body trembling slightly in the cool air, he kindly drapes his own heavy coat over her small shoulders while she whispers a soft word of thanks. Cutting right to the chase, he bluntly asks what kind of horrific events led her to end up alone in the royal forest, a painful question she dreaded but fully expected. Traumatizing flashbacks of her abusive family screaming at her violently flood her mind, causing her throat to seize up entirely as she desperately tries to force out an explanation. Witnessing her genuine panic, the knight gently breaks the tension and assures her she does not have to share her painful secrets if she isn't fully ready. Looking away with a pained expression, Sophia admits her pathetic reason is too difficult to explain, but a gentle Gilbert reassures her that she doesn't have to say it now. Leaning closer with a serious gaze, Gilbert explains that he won't understand her pain if she stays silent. Sophia's eyes widen in absolute disbelief when the stoic knight earnestly asks her to come and live by his side. Trembling as she insists she would only be a heavy burden, Sophia is stunned to realize that he isn't joking and truly means his offer. A heavy silence falls between them as Gilbert quietly studies her anxious, downcast face. Narrowing his gaze, the knight perceptively asks if she feels like a burden simply because she was born without magical power. Stunned that he uncovered her deepest secret, a terrified Sophia nervously asks how he could possibly know that about her. Calmly brushing off her fear, Gilbert reveals that there are absolutely no magical tools in his room, assuring her she can live there at total ease. Glancing around the grand room, Sophia finally realizes that the lamps, fireplace, and bathroom rely entirely on nostalgic antique furnishings rather than magic. Overwhelmed by his impossible kindness, she tries to protest again by formally addressing him as a knight. Staring directly into her tear-filled eyes, he firmly cuts off her formal protests. Leaning in gently, he corrects her formal address and insists that she call him by his true name. Her mind instantly flashes back to a sweet childhood memory where she was taught that calling someone by their name forms a precious bond. Heavy tears immediately swell in Sophia's eyes as the overwhelming weight of his genuine kindness shatters her emotional walls. Bursting into desperate tears, she bravely calls him Gilbert but tragically confesses how deeply terrified she is. Haunted by the violent carriage accident that orphaned her, she violently sobs that she is terrified of forming a loving bond only to lose it again. Unfazed by her trauma, Gilbert softly promises to never harm her, urging her to stay simply because he wishes to know her. Utterly overwhelmed, Sophia realizes there is absolutely no escaping the powerful, unconditional kindness radiating from this man. Finally accepting his shelter, she quietly thanks him as he instructs her to rest while he takes the room right next door. Watching him turn away, a small blush creeps across her face as she notices a genuinely sweet and happy expression lingering in his voice. Bidding her goodnight as he gently closes the heavy door, she is left entirely alone to process her racing thoughts. Clutching her chest in the silent room, Sophia tries desperately to calm her wildly pounding heartbeat. Days later, a fully recovered Sophia begs an older servant to let her work and earn her keep. Having spent a week observing the kind staff and peaceful mansion, she is absolutely certain that Gilbert is a truly righteous master. Even though Gilbert previously assured her she didn't need to work, an eager Sophia insists that sitting around idle feels completely wrong. The head butler smiles warmly at her earnest request, agreeing that it is much safer to let her work indoors where she feels useful. Thrilled by his gentle approval, Sophia's face instantly lights up with pure joy as she enthusiastically accepts the arrangement. A cheerful maid named Karina brightly introduces herself, bringing tears of relief to Sophia's eyes by assuring her she truly belongs there. Blushing with happiness, Sophia formally greets her new co-worker, but a laughing Karina insists they drop the formalities and speak casually. Guiding her up the stairs to explain the grand mansion's layout, Karina assigns Sophia the unique and perfect job of maintaining all the old, non-magical tools. Pointing to a nearby room, Sophia learns it belonged to the Marquis's wife but sits entirely empty because Sir Gilbert is surprisingly unmarried. A fellow maid gasps in absolute shock, utterly baffled that Sophia had no idea about the handsome knight's marital status. The flustered maid asks if Sophia is a relative since she spent all her time in his room, prompting Sophia to admit she only knew Gilbert as a knight. Clenching her hands nervously, Sophia suddenly realizes that Gilbert had lied about her identity solely to protect her. The loud ringing of the noon bell abruptly interrupts their revealing conversation. Grabbing Sophia's hand excitedly, the eager maid declares they will discuss all the juicy details over lunch. The gossiping maid enthusiastically reveals that the 25-year-old Gilbert serves as the vice-captain of the Crown Prince's Royal Guard and is a renowned magic knight. She explains that since his parents used to manage the territory and he has no siblings, the busy knight lives entirely alone in the massive capital mansion. Genuinely confused, Sophia asks if such a popular man has a fiancée and wonders why he remains single. The maid sighs in disbelief at Sophia's ignorance, explaining that while noble ladies admire his handsome looks and high status from afar, very few actually try to get close to him. Leaning in conspiratorially, the maid reveals the open secret that Gilbert possesses such overwhelmingly strong magic that he can read the power fluctuations of anyone he touches. She notes that despite his undeniably good nature, people keep their distance because his terrifying ability allows him to perceive hidden secrets. Hearing that anyone would be terrified of having their heart peeked into, Sophia immediately recalls the moment Gilbert claimed he saw absolutely nothing when he touched her. Sophia connects the dots, realizing that Gilbert purposefully brought her to his magic-free room because he had already deduced her complete lack of magical ability. The maid clarifies that Gilbert's immense power shatters any magical tool he touches, forcing him to wear a restrictive bracelet that he only removes in his private quarters lined with antique furnishings. Overwhelmed by a sudden rush of intense emotion, tears stream down Sophia's face, completely alarming the panicked maid. Sophia weeps bitterly, heartbroken by the tragic realization that the extraordinarily kind Sir Gilbert was isolated and feared because of his incredible power. She cries thinking about how much he must have suffered, yet he still compassionately took in a magicless girl like her and offered her his own safe room. Gripping Karina's hands, Sophia sobs uncontrollably as overwhelming waves of sympathy, profound gratitude, and utter confusion mix together in her fragile heart. Wiping her eyes, she desperately wishes to tell Sir Gilbert something meaningful but struggles to find the right words to express her turbulent feelings. A completely flustered Karina throws her hands up in exasperation as Sophia quickly tries to assure her friend that she is perfectly fine. Refusing to pry any further, the caring maid sternly orders Sophia to focus on eating properly to keep her strength up. Flashing a gentle, teary smile, Sophia softly thanks her new friend and promises to do her best. Beaming with renewed determination, Sophia vows to work hard while internally realizing Gilbert called her simply to show her the private room he generously prepared for her. Later that afternoon, Sophia cheerfully greets Mr. Hans as they politely thank each other for their continued hard work. Staring at her with a distinctly sorrowful expression, the elderly butler quietly notes that the maid's uniform suits her perfectly. Hans clenches his hand in silent regret, deeply saddened that she fits the servant role so well when he secretly wishes she could stand as Lord Gilbert's proud equal. Escorted back into the master's quarters, Sophia formally welcomes Sir Gilbert while nervously wondering if her swirling romantic thoughts are far too presumptuous. Hans respectfully bows out of the room, leaving Sophia alone as Karina's teasing voice playfully echoes in her mind about visiting his room again. Watching Gilbert quietly set his book down, Sophia blushes fiercely and silently insists to herself that her relationship with him isn't at all what the gossiping maids imply. Staring deeply into the distance, Sophia realizes she finds herself thinking about the stoic knight so much more than she did just yesterday. A vivid memory surfaces of their hands gently touching as he earnestly declared his desire to know her better. Reflecting on his warm words, her heart flutters with an overwhelming urge to finally know him in return. Gazing into the quiet night, she recalls how that very same question has been relentlessly repeating in her mind ever since she arrived. Blushing softly, she admits that until yesterday, she only ever gave timid replies and looked down in sheer embarrassment. Stepping into her newfound confidence, she sincerely thanks him for entrusting her with the essential job of managing the estate's old tools. Gripping her hands securely, the knight tells her not to mention it as she boldly asks if she can question him about something personal. Staring up into his striking eyes, she bravely demands to know why he constantly goes out of his way to touch her hand whenever they speak. Catching his sudden flinch, a panicked Sophia frantically apologizes, realizing this is the very first time she has ever seen the composed knight visibly shaken. Gazing at him with pure anxiety, she shrinks back and desperately wonders if she just asked something completely unnecessary. Tightening his gentle grip, Gilbert firmly reassures her that she needs to understand his motives if she is going to work closely with him. Maintaining intense eye contact, he bluntly confesses that holding her hand simply feels incredibly comfortable. Refusing to run away from the truth, Sophia bravely locks eyes with him, utterly captivated by the serious light shining in his gaze. Lowering his voice, the knight reveals his cursed ability to read magical fluctuations against his will, explaining that she was the absolute first person he touched who showed zero magical aura. Shifting his gaze downward, he awkwardly admits his actions might be a terrible nuisance to her. Leaning in closer, he quickly shatters her doubts by confessing that the quiet moments he spends touching her are truly precious to him. Changing the subject, he hands her a small brass key and instructs her to head up to her newly assigned quarters on the 3rd floor. Carefully outlining the amenities, he notes that she can use the private bath in her room since the communal servant showers all rely on magic tools she cannot operate. Trembling silently, Sophia realizes his profound kindness brings back painful memories of her late parents and her previously gentle fiancé, reminding her of everything she has already lost. Feeling completely terrified by her own vulnerability, she likens his sweetness to a forbidden fruit that far surpasses any affection she has ever known. Tears pooling in her eyes, she internally admits her absolute terror at tasting a warmth she knows she will never be able to resist. Forcing a broken smile while tears stream down her face, she thanks him profusely as a bewildered Gilbert demands to know why she looks like she is about to cry. Gently patting her head, he ignores her tears and softly instructs her to take a warm bath and drain the water when she finishes. Watching his tall figure step away, the tiny distance between them suddenly feels like an unbearable chasm, leaving her unexpectedly lonely. Arriving at room 301, the exhausted girl pulls out a match and prepares to navigate a dark room devoid of modern magic. Striking the match, Her eyes widen in pure astonishment as the flickering flame reveals an array of non-magical, antique lamps specifically placed for her. Holding the tiny flame aloft, a heavy blush spreads across her cheeks as the sheer depth of his consideration completely overwhelms her. Scanning the charming blue-flowered lamps and the deliberately placed box of matches, she tearfully chuckles at how wildly unfair his kindness truly is. Spotting a small piece of parchment resting on the mahogany desk, she gently picks it up, realizing he prepared a personal note just for her. Clutching the handwritten card bearing his initials and a wish for her smile, a weeping Sophia softly whispers his name into the quiet room. Clutching a small note to her chest with trembling hands, a tearful Sophia realizes the gentle knight must have intentionally left the card just for her. Overwhelmed by his continuous and pure generosity, she quietly admits to herself that such profound kindness is actually frightening to her. Meanwhile, a cheerful Crown Prince Matthias interrupts his distracted guard, calling Gilbert's name to ask if he is even listening to the conversation. The prince confidently notes his guard's unusual interest in a count's heir, knowing it stems from Lady Sophia's family, and reveals that Lord Albert will attend the upcoming ball with his fiancée. Gilbert analyzes the timeline, noting that the engagement between the heir of Count Franz and the daughter of Baron Lanish was made 7 years ago, long before the tragic death of the former Baron couple. Piecing the puzzle together, the knight silently deduces that if Sophia is the rightful daughter, the mysterious fiancé attending the ball must be someone else entirely. He remembers that the real Sophia is currently working hard at the Forster estate, slowly trying to heal and move forward with her shattered life. Although the prince insists he doesn't intend to deliberately drag her into a scandal, the situation heavily weighs on his mind as he asks for Gilbert's absolute cooperation. Flashing a brilliant smile, Matthias formally requests the stoic knight to act as his personal guard on the day of the ball. The prince playfully admits he learned of Lord Albert's massive popularity from the crown princess, noting that women at tea parties always bring back the most unexpected news. Matthias muses about the excited young ladies eager to finally see Albert's hidden fiancée, knowing society naturally expects the girl to be the current baron's daughter rather than the exiled Sophia. Gilbert's expression darkens as he reflects on the undeniable wrongness of the situation, certain that a terrible incident recently forced Sophia out of her own household. His mind buzzes with suspicion over the sheer audacity of the Lanish family boldly attending a grand ball at such a chaotic time. The perceptive crown prince suddenly leans in close, fixing his distracted knight with a highly amused and deeply knowing stare. Breaking the silence with a wicked smirk, Matthias confidently declares that he can read the knight's protective thoughts right off his face. Exhausted by the teasing, Gilbert sighs heavily as the prince jokingly points out that the knight hasn't heard a single word from Lady Sophia yet. Later that evening, Gilbert quietly visits Sophia's room, gently calling her name and asking what happened during her day. Looking up with a soft expression, she warmly recounts how the off-duty cook generously gave all the servants some incredibly delicious cookies. Blushing slightly, she shyly extends a small wrapped bag toward him, hoping to share her sweet treasures with the knight. Gilbert graciously accepts the humble gift from her delicate hands, offering a quiet and sincere word of thanks. Suddenly panicking, Sophia stammers out a frantic apology, leaving a deeply confused Gilbert to wonder if he somehow made her feel uneasy. She worriedly explains that the cookies might be far too plain for someone of his refined noble taste, but he immediately dismisses her anxious fears. Assuring her the treats are delicious, Gilbert swallows back the dark story the prince told him earlier and instead urges her to eat the rest herself. Staring at her peaceful face, he decides to leave the matter alone, completely unwilling to ask about her traumatic past and watch her bright expression darken. Gently patting her head, the knight warmly wishes her a good night, silently praying she falls asleep thinking only of happiness. Walking away with a heavy sigh, he admits her blushing smile is adorable but realizes the deep shadow of sorrow has not yet faded from her eyes. The next day, a highly dramatic Karina leans in close, loudly declaring that Sophia's current situation is completely and utterly strange. The shocked maid cannot believe that Sophia visits Sir Gilbert's private room every single night without a single romantic thing happening between them. Karina aggressively presses for details, completely flabbergasted when Sophia innocently confirms there has been absolutely no sweet mood or embrace. Smiling with a touch of sadness, Sophia shuts down the wild gossip by insisting the knight only touches her out of pity because her total lack of magic is so unusual. Noting her earlier tears, Karina gently presses a troubled Sophia about whether she harbors any romantic feelings for Sir Gilbert. Gazing down solemnly, Sophia vividly recalls their repeating nightly conversations and the comforting warmth of his gentle touch, yet she firmly believes a mere servant could never stand as his equal. Blushing deeply, she admits to herself that while she absolutely mustn't fall for him, his extraordinary kindness is more than enough to capture her heart. She realizes with profound dread that once she experienced the hidden, burning heat beneath his icy exterior, she became utterly terrified of eventually losing it. Clutching her chest, she firmly resolves to suppress this overwhelming emotion and pretend she never noticed her own feelings. Karina quickly apologizes for overstepping, but a tearful Sophia insists she is the one who should be saying sorry. Suddenly, a cheerful voice calls out for Sophia to come eat, breaking the heavy tension between the two maids. Flashing a brilliantly warm smile, Sophia happily tells Karina how incredibly kind everyone at the mansion has been to her. Clasping her hands affectionately, a beaming Karina agrees and they both rejoice in their shared happiness of working together. Meanwhile, at an elegant royal gathering, a sharp-eyed prince asks Crown Princess Emilia if she has found anything promising. Staring intently into the crowd, Emilia explains that since Lord Albert is attending the ball with his new fiancée, he will definitely come to greet the royal family. Spotting their target approaching, Emilia tightly grips her companion's arm and fiercely declares she will not let this perfect chance slip away. The prince calmly acknowledges Albert's handsome, popular reputation while casually noting that Gilbert should also be arriving at any moment. Standing tall and imposing beside the royal thrones, a stoic Gilbert silently observes the grand hall and notes that everything is proceeding exactly as planned. Glancing at the approaching couple, someone asks if the girl is the rumored fiancée just as Albert affectionately tells his companion to enjoy herself. Stepping forward proudly, Albert officially introduces the young woman on his arm as Bianca, the daughter of Baron Lanish and his beloved fiancée. He smoothly explains that since they have both finally come of age, he happily brought her as his official companion for the evening party. Upon hearing that Albert is 18, the prince thoughtfully asks for confirmation of his exact age. The prince smoothly suggests that Albert should get to know his close friend, subtly hinting that the young lord will likely be frequenting the royal castle much more often. Gesturing to the tall knight beside him, the prince formally introduces the imposing Marquis Gilbert Forster. Clearly honored by the prestigious introduction to His Highness's friend, Albert respectfully introduces himself in return. As Albert firmly shakes Gilbert's gloved hand, he graciously thanks the prince while receiving warm congratulations on his long-standing childhood engagement. Through the physical contact of the handshake, Gilbert's power triggers a sudden memory of a young Albert proudly introducing a tiny Lady Sophia to his family. In the vivid recollection, the young boy gently takes little Sophia's hands and warmly greets her for the very first time. Looking deeply into her eyes, young Albert confidently promises the blushing girl that she is going to marry him and become his princess. Overflowing with innocent joy, little Sophia eagerly accepts his hand, completely enraptured by his sweet vow. The beautiful illusion violently shatters in the memory as present-day Albert cruelly demands the immediate annulment of his lifelong engagement to Lady Sophia. Sitting comfortably with her treacherous aunt and uncle, Albert coldly formalizes his betrayal by declaring his absolute love for Miss Bianca. With the memory sequence ending, a smiling Albert breaks the handshake and sincerely thanks Gilbert, promising to speak with them at length another time. Apologizing for taking up their valuable time, Albert subtly uses a quick burst of magic with his heel before ordering Bianca to follow him away. Startled by a sudden intrusion, Bianca lets out a terrified shriek as the confrontation escalates. Cruel memories of her abusive aunt and uncle screaming at her to leave echo painfully in her mind. The agonizing image of Bianca happily declaring she can be with Albert forever shatters Sophia's remaining composure. Snapped back to reality, Sophia graciously thanks the knight as he gently asks if she is all right. Seizing the opportunity, Albert politely excuses himself from the royal presence and suggests to Bianca that they rest a little. Noting his exhausted expression, the royal figure asks Gilbert what he saw to make him look so tired. Maintaining his serious demeanor, Gilbert promises to reveal everything once the evening party has officially concluded. Clenching his fist in silent fury, he wonders how anyone could be cruel enough to steal her once bright smile. Consumed by a fierce, protective rage, he curses the people who dared to cause her such immense pain. Sprinting urgently through the halls, a breathless Gilbert wonders if Sophia has already fallen asleep for the night. To his absolute surprise, the door swings open to reveal a waiting Sophia. Colliding softly with his chest, An apologetic Sophia quickly explains her bath ran late before warmly welcoming him back. A sudden gasp escapes her lips as she realizes the overwhelming proximity between them. Pulling her into a sudden and tight embrace, Gilbert holds her so closely that she can barely catch her breath. Releasing her with a heavy blush, the knight steps back as a completely flustered Sophia realizes his lips just grazed her neck. Gently touching her damp hair to break the tension, he softly offers his sincere apologies. Flustered beyond belief, she nervously stammers out a denial and insists her hair is perfectly dry. Quickly changing the subject, he asks if anything special happened today, prompting her to mention it was payday. She excitedly explains that she spent extra time learning about market prices from her fellow maid, Karina. Curiously, Gilbert asks if she plans to buy anything, only for her to sheepishly admit she never goes shopping. Bowing her head in embarrassment, she confesses she has never actually been into town or gone shopping by herself. Refusing to let her miss out, Gilbert smoothly declares they will go together on her very next day off. Smiling with genuine warmth, he promises to clear his schedule and tells her to start thinking about where she wants to go. Retreating to her room, Sophia slumps against the heavy wooden door with a furiously burning face. Gripping her racing heart, she realizes her entire mind is completely consumed by thoughts of the handsome knight. Overwhelmed by her unbefitting status, she guiltily resolves to bury her burgeoning feelings and pretend they do not exist. The very next day, Karina loudly gasps in shock and excitedly declares that the upcoming outing is undeniably a date. Desperately trying to downplay the situation, Sophia insists he only offered out of pity because she had never been shopping before. Undeterred by her doubts, Karina warmly encourages her to simply enjoy the rare opportunity to explore the capital. Gratefully accepting a detailed map from Karina, Sophia prepares to do her own research in the servants' hall to make the most of her trip. Sitting together at the table, Karina asks what Sophia wants to buy, suggesting sweets or clothes while Sophia humbly requests simple handkerchiefs, needles, and thread. Blushing softly, Sophia shyly admits she wants to sew something special to give to someone if she can manage it. Instantly catching on, Karina wails dramatically and declares she is incredibly jealous of Sir Gilbert's impending gift. Quickly recovering her composure, the energetic maid begins planning their shopping trip by mentioning a street filled with affordable clothing shops and a great confectionery. Realizing she only owns a single dress and her uniform coat, Sophia admits she feels completely lost but earnestly thanks Karina for her invaluable help. Suddenly struck by an idea, Karina urgently pulls Sophia up and demands she come to her room right away. Dragging the bewildered girl along, Karina loudly declares she will lend her some clothes because she absolutely refuses to let Sophia go on a date in a uniform coat. Sophia frantically tries to explain that it isn't a date, but the excited maid completely ignores her protests and tells her not to hold back. Throwing open the doors to a large wooden wardrobe, Karina firmly asks which dress Sophia was originally planning to wear for her outing. Glancing away in embarrassment, Sophia admits she planned to wear her dark green dress since it is the newest item she kept from her harsh days at the Baron's estate. Sophia clutches her green dress, recalling how it became hers only because her cruel cousin threw it away, disgusted by the idea of wearing the same color as Sophia's eyes. Unaware of the painful memory, Karina cheerfully points out that the dress matches Sophia's eye color and looks incredibly cute on her. Sweeping past the old memories, the energetic maid holds up a fresh outfit and promises it will suit her perfectly. Clasping her hands in sheer delight, Karina begs to help her get ready, confessing it has always been her dream to serve as a personal maid to a noble lady. Smiling with a touch of sadness, Sophia gently reminds her enthusiastic friend that she is only a fellow servant now. Sensing her friend's lingering insecurity, Karina gently places a comforting hand on her shoulder and reassures her that everything is fine. The maid wisely points out that unlike the ambitious nobles scheming to marry into the Marquis' family, absolutely no one is troubled by Sophia growing closer to Sir Gilbert. Despite the reassurance, a heavy silence falls as Sophia turns her gaze away, still fearing that her mere presence is a burden. Staring blankly ahead, the former noble insists with heartbreaking certainty that she is completely mismatched for someone of his high status. Grabbing Sophia's hands, Karina warmly encourages her that dreaming is free and reminds her that love is something that simply happens without warning. Flashing a brilliantly supportive smile, the cheerful maid insists that she should embrace the feeling and enjoy her youth while she can. Deeply moved by the unwavering emotional support, Sophia lowers her eyes and softly thanks her friend. Looking up with a genuine smile, Sophia admits how truly blessed she feels to have made such a wonderful friend. Overwhelmed with affection, Karina bursts into dramatic tears and pulls Sophia into a tight, crushing hug while screaming that she loves her too. Held warmly in her friend's arms, Sophia silently vows to become a person truly worthy of Karina's bright smile and Sir Gilbert's profound kindness. Later that day, Sophia nervously clutches her dress and approaches Gilbert to finally tell him about the destination she has been thinking of. Sitting comfortably on the nearby sofa, Gilbert listens intently and immediately asks if they should plan the trip for next week. Sophia gasps in sheer surprise as the busy knight casually calculates his schedule and promises to take his next holiday off just for her. Overjoyed by his unwavering dedication, she turns to him with a radiant smile of deep gratitude as he watches her with soft, contented eyes. Gazing warmly at her brightening face, the stoic knight finally smiles and softly admits he is simply glad to see her happy. Gilbert gently asks Sophia if she is uneasy since she hasn't gone into town much. Sophia nervously admits that while she is scared to leave the estate, she is mostly just unaccustomed to crowded places. Clasping her hands tightly, she explains that Karina has taught her many things. Looking up at him with newfound confidence, she assures Lord Gilbert that she will be fine since he will be with her. Gilbert softly brushes her hair back, sincerely expressing his gratitude to her. He solemnly reveals that everyone who feared his power avoided touching or even speaking to him, yet she allows his touch without hesitation. Flashing a vulnerable, gentle smile, he thanks her for always trying so hard to talk with him even when she struggles. Sophia blushes deeply, realizing that the gaping hole in her heart is suddenly feeling incredibly warm. Staring at his back with a tender smile, she feels her once empty heart being completely filled with his comforting warmth. Gilbert gently touches her face, warmly noting that she looks much better when she is smiling. Back at the barracks, 3 shocked junior knights excitedly scream at their vice-captain, demanding to know if he finally got a girlfriend. The flustered knights rapidly point out his softened vibe and recent absence from the barracks, leaving a bewildered Gilbert to process their sudden interrogation. Sweating slightly under their intense scrutiny, Gilbert awkwardly deflects by claiming he simply picked up a stray cat. The knights gasp in utter disbelief at the idea of him owning a pet, while Gilbert internally rationalizes that telling them the truth would only cause unnecessary trouble. One knight muses about him getting so attached to a cat, completely buying into the vice-captain's hasty lie. When asked what kind of cat it is, a deeply thoughtful Gilbert describes her deep, unforgettable green eyes. Remembering her endearing, timid smile from the previous night, he softly adds that stroking her soft fur feels incredibly comforting. Clenching his fist, he silently agonizes over how to make her smile again, darkly wondering if he should just lock her away to keep her safe. He imagines her smiling radiantly in a gentle world, desperately wanting to take away all her suffering and protect her forever. Startled back to reality by a knight's confused question, Gilbert quickly covers up his intense possessiveness by claiming that seeing his cat get along with others also makes him happy. The junior knights dramatically cover their eyes, begging their vice-captain to tone down his overwhelming sex appeal while warning him that his pet obsession will ruin his marriage prospects. Dressed in a beautiful winter cloak, a flustered Sophia rushes into the hallway and quickly apologizes to Lord Gilbert for keeping him waiting. Standing tall with his arms crossed, Gilbert smoothly reassures her that he wasn't waiting at all. A grand horse-drawn carriage pulls up to the estate as Gilbert officially announces their departure. Sitting across from him inside the moving carriage, Sophia politely thanks him for taking her out today. Staring out the window, he casually mentions that going into town once in a while isn't so bad since he rarely goes out alone. Turning his gentle gaze back to her, he softly implies that she is the special reason for this rare outing. Staring back with wide, blushing eyes, a deeply moved Sophia confesses how incredibly glad she is to go out with him. As they arrive, Gilbert steps out first and courteously offers his open hand to help her step down. Sophia takes his hand and steps into the bustling town, completely overwhelmed by the intense, swarming crowds rushing past them. Stepping out into the bustling town, Sophia suddenly realizes how incredibly gentle and peaceful the Forster estate truly is. Feeling as though the harsh town is actively rejecting her, she shrinks back and timidly calls out to Lord Gilbert. Sensing her unease, the stoic knight gently reassures her that everything is perfectly all right. Looking at her with steady eyes, he vows that whenever they walk outside together he will never let go of her hand. Blushing deeply at his protective words, Sophia softly agrees and places herself entirely in his care. Holding hands tightly, the pair casually strolls past a quaint bakery and a flower cart in the busy market. Taking in the vibrant sights, an excited Sophia admits the town makes her heart race, prompting Gilbert to warmly note that she truly looks better when she smiles. Beaming with genuine happiness, she gives a bright nod of agreement. Changing the subject, Gilbert curiously points out that Karina must have helped her get ready for the outing. Covering his mouth to hide his embarrassment, he bluntly admits that the maids have made her look far too cute. With her face burning red from his sudden compliment, Sophia bashfully lets herself be led through the streets. Gently patting her head, Gilbert smiles and praises her for finally being able to look forward to the future before continuing their walk. Arriving at a bustling square with a large stone fountain, Gilbert steps up to a food stall to purchase some snacks. As they eat, Sophia gratefully thanks him for accompanying her, while Gilbert casually mentions he usually guards his highness when he goes out incognito. Pausing mid-bite, Sophia curiously repeats the word, guard, as she thinks about his responsibilities. Looking up at him, she timidly asks what kind of duties his work actually entails. He patiently explains that as a magic knight in the 2nd Division, his main duties range from investigating major cases to guarding the crown prince. When she nervously asks if he ever goes to the dangerous front lines, he admits that they are occasionally sent to subjugate magical beasts or handle border conflicts. Staring at him in quiet awe, she realizes that the terrifying conflicts she only ever heard about from afar are an everyday reality for him. Though he assures her it is a rare occurrence that she shouldn't worry about, the mere thought of him in danger makes her grip her skirt in distress. Suddenly, a commotion breaks out as a thief sprints past, prompting Gilbert to immediately order her to stay put while he gives chase. Watching his retreating back, a profound sense of frustration washes over her as she realizes her own utter helplessness in emergencies. Clenching her hands tightly to her chest, she bitterly accepts that there is absolutely nothing she can do to help him. Glancing over at a nearby bench, she spots the victim being comforted and sighs in relief that the woman appears to be unhurt. Determined not to cause him any unnecessary worry, the obedient girl takes a seat on a wrought iron bench to quietly wait for his return. Just as she settles in, a hauntingly familiar voice suddenly calls out her name from nearby. Her eyes widen in absolute terror as a chilling wave of recognition freezes the blood in her veins. Looking up from the bench, she is forced into a nightmarish reunion with Lord Albert and her cruel cousin, Bianca. Staring down at her with fake politeness, Albert claims he is glad to see her doing well while Bianca glares with barely concealed venom. Adding insult to injury, the oblivious lord smugly remarks that the dress she is currently wearing is the exact same one he gifted her long ago. Feigning deep concern, Bianca tightly grasps her cousin's hands and dramatically declares how truly worried she was for Sophia's safety. Turning to Lord Albert with a sweet smile, she requests a little time alone to catch up with her long-lost relative. Taken completely off guard by the sudden encounter, Sophia lets out a quiet gasp of surprise. Dropping her cheerful facade, Bianca coldly commands Sophia to follow her somewhere they can talk without interruptions. Sophia nervously tries to protest the demand, explaining that she promised to wait right there for someone important. Glaring with utter disgust, Bianca venomously orders Sophia not to speak her name and sneers at her for picking up the trash dress she discarded. The arrogant cousin cruelly boasts that fine clothes, jewels, and Lord Albert himself are all much more fitting for a beautiful woman like her. Staring down at her trembling victim, Bianca aggressively warns the useless burden not to get ahead of herself. Paralyzed by years of abuse, Sophia's mind flashes back to a lifetime of forced apologies just to escape their harsh scolding. But the warm memory of Gilbert praising her smile fills her heart, reminding her of the brave promise she made to keep facing forward. Finding a tiny spark of courage, Sophia clutches the fabric tightly and weakly defends the dress that Lord Gilbert so kindly praised. Her defiance instantly backfires as Bianca's eyes darken with sadistic rage, causing a terrified Sophia to immediately stammer out an apology. Shrinking back from her abuser, Sophia cries out a desperate apology while Bianca smiles with wicked satisfaction. Refusing to accept her victim's defiance, Bianca violently grabs a handful of Sophia's cherished green dress. Tightening her grip on the fabric, the wicked cousin coldly declares that she has every right to treat the dress like the trash it is. Fleeing from the painful confrontation, a heartbroken Sophia realizes she has already broken her promise to stay strong and face the future. Tears stream down her face as she runs blindly through the streets, sobbing apologies for failing to wait where Gilbert left her. Retreating into a dark, narrow alleyway, the weeping girl collapses to her knees in absolute powerlessness. Meanwhile, an oblivious Gilbert calmly finishes his official business, assuring a flustered city guard that he will include the incident details in tomorrow's report. Wondering if his sweet companion is feeling lonely, the knight returns to the plaza only to find Lord Albert and Bianca sitting comfortably by the fountain. The nobleman sitting beside the couple jumps up in surprise to greet Marquis Forster, while Gilbert stares in confusion at the empty bench where he left Sophia. The cheerful nobleman mentions he is observing the city for his father and casually asks the Marquis if he is meeting someone. Hearing Bianca smoothly claim she just ran into a long-lost relative, Gilbert's eyes widen as he instantly connects the dots about Sophia's sudden disappearance. Without waiting for another word, the panicked knight abruptly excuses himself and shoves past the startled group to begin a frantic search. Running desperately through the crowded streets, Gilbert curses the fact that standard tracking spells are useless on a girl completely devoid of magic. His face twists in deep, agonizing regret as he realizes this critical vulnerability is exactly why he should never have left her side. Searching every shadowy corner of the city, the frantic knight desperately calls out Sophia's name. Hidden away in a dirty alley, a trembling Sophia buries her face in her knees and struggles to find the right words to say. Suddenly appearing before her, a breathless and deeply remorseful Gilbert looks down with pained eyes and softly apologizes. Staring at his boots planted firmly in front of her, Sophia quietly wonders what kind of words are even appropriate for a heartbreaking moment like this. Sophia bitterly scolds herself for being so pathetic and poorly spoken during such a crucial moment. Tears streaming down her flushed face, Sophia desperately apologizes to Gilbert while nervously clutching his large hands. Deeply confused by her sudden distress, Gilbert stares at her and wonders why she is apologizing when she has done absolutely nothing wrong. Gripping her hand tightly, Gilbert admits that while her lack of magic normally pleases him, right now it deeply frustrates him because he cannot sense her true feelings. He gently reminds her that she doesn't need to force herself to speak, but earnestly confesses his deep desire to truly know her. Drawing closer in the quiet moment, he tenderly envelopes her small, trembling hands entirely within his own. Leaning in close to her tearful face, he softly begs her to open up and tell him what is wrong since he still doesn't understand her pain. Deeply moved by his incredibly sincere plea, a weeping Sophia softly agrees and whispers her heartfelt thanks. Escorting her into an elegant city boutique, Gilbert immediately requests a private room from the highly welcoming staff. The enthusiastic boutique maids whisk a confused Sophia away, cheerfully promising to make her look even cuter while lamenting her ruined dress. The attentive ladies respectfully inform her that the Marquis personally requested she change into completely new clothes. Sophia stares in absolute awe as the maids reveal exquisite hair ornaments and beautiful shoes handpicked by the Marquis himself. Stepping out in a breathtaking new gown, a fiercely blushing Sophia shyly thanks Gilbert as he warmly notes how perfectly it suits her. Taking her hand to confidently lead her to the tailor next, Gilbert smoothly ignores her frantic questions about how they will possibly pay for everything. When she protests that she has absolutely no right to receive such expensive items, he gently but firmly insists she accept them as a personal gift. His eyes darken with immense guilt as he sincerely apologizes, blaming his own absence for allowing her favorite dress to be ruined. Sophia internally argues against his guilt, knowing it was his official duty to leave and that Bianca is the only one truly to blame for tearing the dress. Looking up at his solemn, handsome face, she realizes with overwhelming clarity that this incredibly kind man is simply trying his best to cheer her up. She tightly grips her new dress, painfully aware that she currently possesses absolutely nothing of value to give him in return. Staring forward with newfound determination burning brightly in her eyes, she firmly resolves to do the very least she can. She vows to bravely keep walking forward with her head held high so she won't be outshone by his beautiful, generous gift. Standing by their carriage after finishing their shopping trip, Gilbert warmly tells her he enjoyed their time and would love to take her out again. Settling into the quiet carriage ride, Sophia reflects that despite the painful unexpected reunion with Bianca, Sir Gilbert's incredible kindness completely fills her heart. Empowered by his unwavering emotional support, she finally feels ready to open up and let him truly know her hidden struggles. Noticing her suddenly shifting demeanor, Gilbert turns to her and gently asks what is on her mind. Blushing nervously, she politely asks if he could spare some time later because there is something important she desperately wants to discuss with him. Gently patting her head to soothe her nerves, Gilbert readily agrees to listen to her story right after they finish their evening meal. Arriving back at the bustling mansion, a much more cheerful Sophia greets Karina and immediately offers to wash her borrowed cape. Karina instantly spots the luxurious new outfit, prompting a flustered Sophia to admit Sir Gilbert bought it for her after her old clothes were unfortunately torn. Examining the expensive blue fabric and silver embroidery, Karina playfully teases that the dress perfectly matches Sir Gilbert's own colors, making her wonder if the quiet knight is secretly extremely possessive. Beaming with joy, a fellow maid named Karina enthusiastically declares she is glad Sophia had fun and urges her to be happy as they head out to eat. Looking back with a bright smile, Karina excitedly suggests that the two of them should go out together next time. Overjoyed by the invitation, Sophia beams radiantly and eagerly accepts her friend's proposal. Walking hand in hand down an unfamiliar corridor, Sophia nervously asks Lord Gilbert where they are going, noting that this side of the estate is strictly for guest rooms. Gesturing confidently toward a grand staircase, Gilbert explains that the path leads directly to the rooftop rather than just the guest quarters. Stepping in unison, the pair slowly climbs the dimly lit stone stairs as a heavy wooden door creaks open before them. Sophia halts in her tracks, her eyes widening in absolute wonder at the breathtaking sight unfolding above her. Stepping out onto the grand balcony, Gilbert gently notes that the lack of surrounding lights makes it the perfect place to observe the brilliant night sky. Gazing upwards with profound admiration, a deeply moved Sophia whispers that the glittering cosmos is truly wonderful. Observing her shivering slightly in the crisp night air, the thoughtful knight gently hands her a small, glowing object to keep her warm. Leaning in closely, Gilbert softly asks her to keep his magical intervention a strict secret from Hans, leaving Sophia utterly confused. Startled by the sudden heat radiating from the small object, Sophia gasps in surprise as the knight gently brushes against her hair. Taking a seat together on a stone bench, Gilbert explains he merely warmed their immediate vicinity, prompting Sophia to curiously ask why Mr. Hans cannot know. Looking away with a sheepish expression, the knight admits that his strict caretaker deeply disapproves whenever he relies on this specific warming magic. Recalling his childhood, he explains how he constantly relied on magic instead of wearing seasonal winter clothes, earning him endless scoldings from a frantic Hans. Listening to his charmingly childish confession, Sophia breaks into a soft, genuine giggle, causing Gilbert to smile warmly at her joy. Her smile slowly fades into deep melancholy as she reveals the tragic truth that her parents passed away 5 years ago when she was only 12 years old. Consumed by sudden grief, she explains how her opportunistic uncle immediately seized control of the estate and the baron title while she shut herself away in her room. Staring blankly ahead, she remembers the suffocating loneliness of her isolation, bitterly admitting she naively believed her family was kind simply for letting her stay. Tears prick at the corners of her eyes as the agonizing weight of her past trauma heavily bears down on her fragile heart. Refusing to let her drown in sorrow, Gilbert reaches out and firmly grasps her right hand, grounding her in the present moment. Gathering her courage, she explains that her first real sign of danger came when the family's antique furnishings were slowly replaced by modern magical tools. Unable to operate the new magical devices, she became trapped in the dark isolation of her room, painfully realizing her aunt and uncle deliberately wanted to force her out. Swallowing her pride, she confesses she foolishly believed her high-status engagement to a count's son would guarantee her safety within the hostile household. Lowering her gaze in shame, she admits she never truly loved her fiancé, suspecting her lack of affection eventually became too obvious to hide. A painful memory surfaces of Albert formally annulling their contract to embrace a smirking Bianca, an ultimate betrayal that shattered Sophia completely. Tears stream down her pale face as she admits the absolute humiliation of the event made it impossible to even look at them directly. Trembling violently, she grips the fabric of her skirt, utterly crushed by the unbearable weight of her own perceived worthlessness. Staring solemnly at the quiet night, she reveals she was ordered to leave empty-handed but managed to sneak away with a trunk, her magic stone, and a single small box. Popping open the small velvet box to reveal a glittering necklace, she solemnly notes that her greedy relatives undoubtedly searched everywhere to steal it back from her. Gently holding the necklace, Sophia explains that while her mother wore matching jewelry the day she died, those precious gifts from her father have likely been sold off by now. She sorrowfully admits that she secretly stole the piece she was most drawn to from the arranged mementos because she desperately wanted to feel close to her late parents. Lowering her tearful eyes, she confesses that the stolen necklace became the only remaining memento of her family. Clutching her dress, she bravely tells Sir Gilbert that she has no more secrets left to hide and has finally shared her entire story. Staring earnestly at the courageous girl, the stoic knight admits that he also has something important he has been hiding from her. Sitting beside her on the bench, he reveals that he actually met Lord Albert and Lady Bianca before taking her in. He explains that he briefly crossed paths with the couple and greeted them during an evening party at the royal castle. Recalling the brief encounter, he admits he saw the grand scene of her engagement to Lord Albert but notes that mere appearances often hide the true story. A wave of dread washes over Sophia as she nervously wonders if he was disappointed by her pitiful, fearful expression during that miserable engagement. The knight swiftly apologizes for bringing up the painful memory, remembering her earlier plea to keep her past hidden. Shaking her head, she insists she wanted to tell him everything herself, though she deeply regrets showing him such an unsightly side of her past. Gazing warmly into her eyes, Gilbert firmly assures her that he has never once found her to be unsightly. A gentle smile crosses his face as he sincerely thanks her for forgiving his secrecy and expresses his deep joy that she finally reached out to him. Overwhelmed by his unwavering kindness, Sophia softly calls out his name under the glowing night sky. He completely agrees with her unspoken thoughts, noting how truly beautiful it is to share the exact same night sky together. Reaching out to gently hold her hand, Gilbert allows a profound, unspoken emotion to settle comfortably between them. Blushing deeply as she stares up at his handsome profile, Sophia realizes that simply being by his side fills her with an overwhelming joy. Suddenly flustered by the intense proximity, she playfully protests and warns him that moving away from the bench will make her cold. Leaning in closer, the knight softly breathes her name into the cool night air. Looking directly into her eyes, he earnestly begs her to grant him the absolute right to protect her forever. Utterly bewildered by the heavy confession, she stammers that she loves their time together but completely fails to grasp the romantic weight of his words. He gently urges her to widen her world and stop locking herself away, promising that a bright future filled with new encounters awaits her. Reiterating his deep devotion, the knight firmly declares his desire to be the absolute shield that guards her through all those new experiences. Touched beyond words, Sophia lowers her deeply flushed face and offers a trembling, heartfelt word of thanks. Heavy tears of pure, unadulterated relief finally spill from her eyes as the crushing weight of her past begins to melt away. For the first time in her life, her existence is so fiercely desired that the sheer warmth of his touch makes her racing heart pound deafeningly in her chest. Noticing her sudden silence, a concerned Gilbert softly calls her name to break her out of her emotional daze. Snapping back to reality, she frantically wipes her tears and stammers out a quick apology. Steeling her resolve, she clenches her fist against her chest as a fierce new determination ignites within her eyes. Looking boldly at the knight, Sophia vows that she refuses to simply remain a helpless victim and promises to become truly stronger. Beaming with newfound determination, Sophia cheerfully declares her intention to face the world again. Gilbert smiles warmly and assures her that he will genuinely look forward to her progress. The grateful staff politely bow and thank their master for his continued hard work. Sorting through the day's correspondence, Hans carefully notes that one of the letters is directly from the master's parents. Gilbert's eyes widen in sudden, genuine surprise at the unexpected origin of the message. Meanwhile, a sly prince casually confronts Gilbert about a circulating rumor regarding his intense obsession with a certain pet cat. Leaning in with an amused smirk, the royal teases that this incredibly cute, green-eyed cat is reportedly someone Gilbert desperately wants to lock away. Visibly sweating under the scrutiny, Gilbert nervously listens as the prince pointedly asks when he started keeping such a pet. Realizing his flimsy cover story has wildly backfired, an exasperated Gilbert admits he only spread the rumor to completely conceal Sophia's identity. Staring ahead with heavy sorrow, the stoic knight firmly insists he cannot selfishly drag Sophia into his dangerous circumstances just to satisfy his own desires. He agonizes over the harsh reality that his overwhelming magical burden and high societal rank would eventually crush the sweet girl. Watching his friends suffer, the empathetic prince gently urges Gilbert to allow himself the grace to wish for something more. Lowering his gaze respectfully, a humbled Gilbert quietly thanks His Highness for the far too generous sentiment. Snapped back to the present, a bewildered Gilbert adjusts his collar while questioning the sudden arrival of a royal ball invitation. He thoughtfully notes that since he usually serves as a guard during such events, the prince typically avoids inviting him entirely. Before he can protest, The prince cheerfully interrupts with a brand new, inescapable proposal. The royal smoothly suggests that the upcoming New Year's ball would be the absolute perfect place for Lady Sophia to make her official society debut. Trapping the stunned knight completely, the beaming prince declares he cannot wait to see Gilbert personally escort her in all their splendid glory. Back in the study, Hans awkwardly hands over the second letter sent directly from the Marquis's parents. Gilbert glares intensely at his butler, demanding to know exactly what Hans told his family to provoke such a response. The letter enthusiastically declares his parents' absolute support for his marriage, practically begging to meet the mysterious girl regardless of her social standing. Utterly baffled by the massive leap in logic, Gilbert desperately tries to understand how his simple report about Sophia escalated into wedding preparations. When Hans innocently asks if there is an issue, a highly agitated Gilbert snaps that there is obviously a massive problem. Dropping his deferential tone, the stern butler challenges his master's ultimate intentions regarding Lady Sophia's future. Hans firmly warns that keeping the girl locked safely away in the estate will cruelly deny her the gentle, peaceful happiness she truly deserves. Softening his gaze, the elderly servant warmly notes how Sophia's gentle presence has finally begun to thaw Gilbert's long-frozen heart. Clasping his hands together, Hans sincerely confesses his deepest wish to see a wonderfully happy future blossom between the two of them. He firmly reminds the brooding knight that completely hiding a treasured girl away from the world is never the only way to protect her. Struck by the profound truth of his servant's words, a remorseful Gilbert looks down and quietly apologizes for his foolishness. Later, a completely panicked Sophia frantically lists her utter lack of etiquette and dancing skills as Gilbert gently orders her to listen to his ball proposal. Sitting across from each other, Gilbert gently suggests that while she could remain safely hidden in the house, isolating herself would only severely narrow her world. Leaning in earnestly, he promises to personally protect her from any danger if she steps outside by his side, urging her to ignore her difficult circumstances and simply state what she truly wants. Noticing his striking eyes trembling with genuine emotion, a bewildered Sophia gazes back at him and silently questions the true depth of his feelings. Sensing her hesitation, the knight kindly advises her to take her time deciding, fully acknowledging that venturing out might expose her to people she deeply wishes to avoid. Later that day, Sophia diligently polishes a vase while letting out a heavy sigh, her mind completely consumed by the difficult choice ahead of her. Reflecting on his words, she realizes that simply hiding in the manor forever would be no different from the suffocating isolation she endured at her uncle's house. Her gloomy thoughts are suddenly interrupted when Karina excitedly invites her to lunch, pulling her away from her anxieties about behaving properly at the kingdom's grandest New Year's ball. Taking a bite of her sandwich, an observant Karina peers closely at her friend and asks if everything is all right. Expressing genuine concern, the blonde maid points out that Sophia has been spacing out constantly and gently presses her to share what happened. Feeling that her deep anxieties about her future are far too heavy for a casual chat, Sophia hesitates and gives a vague confirmation that something has indeed been bothering her. When Karina leans in closer to press for details, a flustered Sophia quickly waves her hands and denies that it is a forbidden secret. Lowering her gaze, the young woman softly confesses her deep-seated fear that she hasn't actually accomplished anything meaningful with her life. Instantly dismissing the gloomy thought, Karina enthusiastically recounts how the head maid recently praised Sophia's meticulous work while simultaneously scolding her own poor tea-brewing skills. Shocking her friend completely, the carefree maid casually admits that she simply diluted the ruined tea with hot water and served it anyway without a second thought. While a horrified Sophia points out that such a stunt would normally result in severe punishment, Karina proudly notes that absolutely no one noticed the difference. Giggling at her own mischief, Karina explains that her initial sheer panic quickly faded into amusement when she successfully got away with the blatant mistake. Flashing a bright and encouraging smile, the energetic maid firmly tells her friend to cheer up and stop worrying so much. Taking the profound advice to heart, Sophia realizes that until now, she has merely been surviving day to day without truly looking forward, deeply inspired by Karina's belief that daily growth is all that matters. Smiling with sincere gratitude, Sophia thanks her friend and internally resolves to seriously consider her future instead of merely wishing to become stronger. Beaming with absolute delight, the supportive maid pledges to help her with absolutely anything she might need to move forward. Later that evening, Sophia sits quietly beside the stoic knight on an elegant sofa, the warm glow of the room wrapping around them. Reaching out with newfound courage, She gently places her hand over his and softly calls out his name. Staring directly into his striking eyes, she firmly declares her profound desire to attend the upcoming royal ball. As he calmly accepts her brave decision, a thrilled Sophia immediately begins planning and notes that she will need to purchase a proper dress for the occasion. Raising a gentle finger, the knight smoothly insists that she leave the preparations entirely to him since she will be attending as his personal companion. Flushing a brilliant shade of crimson, a completely flustered Sophia frantically waves her hands and insists she could never ask him to go to such lengths for her. Determined to maintain her independence, she begs him to simply deduct the exorbitant cost of the dress directly from her future wages. Reluctantly yielding to her stubborn request, he promises to arrange everything with Hans before curiously asking what finally pushed her to brave her fears. Staring down at her lap, she timidly confesses her deep, driving desire to learn much more about the mysterious knight who saved her. Raising her head with fierce determination, she declares that she absolutely refuses to remain perfectly protected forever and intends to step firmly into the dangerous world he navigates every day. Tears stream uncontrollably down her face as the heavy weight of her repressed emotions finally shatters her composure, forcing her to admit her desperate need to prove herself worthy. Weeping silently in the dim light, she completely surrenders to her overwhelming emotions and internally confesses her profound love for him. Despite knowing their unequal statuses might eventually force them apart, she tearfully accepts the beautiful reality of his kindness and her own deeply rooted devotion. Tears streaming down her face, Sophia cries out that she simply cannot throw away the overwhelming love swelling in her heart. Swept up in the intense emotion, Gilbert pulls the trembling girl into a deep and passionate embrace on the sofa. Sophia's eyes widen in sheer, breathless shock as she absorbs the overwhelming warmth of his sudden affection. Breaking the embrace, the knight gently thanks her for wishing to grow closer to him while she stammers his name in a daze. Gazing down at her tear-streaked face, he gently promises to protect her but urges her never to force herself. Stepping back, the stoic knight softly confesses that she has become incredibly precious to him as well. Standing up to give her space, Gilbert instructs her to rest for the day and mentions he will inform Hans about the upcoming ball. Utterly flustered by the overwhelming encounter, Sophia tightly clutches her chest and softly murmurs her gratitude. Stepping out into the hallway, Gilbert gently closes the heavy door and sighs heavily as he realizes how deeply he has troubled her. Left entirely alone in her room, Sophia breaks down into anxious tears at the terrifying prospect of attending a grand royal ball. Leaning against the wall, a deeply conflicted Gilbert questions his own actions and wonders if he made the right choice. He bitterly recalls his own vow to give her a gentle and peaceful happiness, fearing the grand event will only bring her overwhelming stress. The next day, a highly enthusiastic Hans excitedly corners Sophia to discuss the extensive preparations required for the royal event. The ambitious butler dramatically declares that since she will debut as Lord Gilbert's escort and meet the crown prince, they absolutely must make her the brightest star of the season. Panicking at the intense pressure, Sophia nervously points out that she lacks both the profound beauty and the complete etiquette training required for such a high-society event. Unfazed by her lack of recent practice, Hans confidently promises to hire a professional tutor to instantly polish her foundational manners. Noticing her extreme hesitation, the clever butler suddenly changes his tactic by insisting that her success is entirely for Lord Gilbert's sake. He passionately explains that greedy nobles constantly try to exploit the Marquis's power, making it impossible for him to find a genuine, loving marriage. Imagining the knight's profound kindness, Sophia blushes deeply as Hans points out that any woman standing by his side would inevitably fall for him. Catching herself blushing over the romantic thought, she is quickly brought back to reality as Hans warns that high society will heavily scrutinize their exact relationship. Pointing a strict finger, the butler insists that Sophia must properly display Lord Gilbert's incredible greatness to all the attending nobles. He boldly commands her to act in a way that makes everyone believe they are an absolutely perfect match, leaving her completely speechless. Hans theorizes that seeing the supposedly frightening Marquis escorting a beautiful, refined lady will instantly shatter the dark rumors surrounding him. To ensure her total cooperation, the determined butler officially assigns her intense etiquette studies and ball preparations as paid working hours. Overwhelmed by the impossibly high hurdle, Sophia anxiously realizes her simple wish to see the outside world has turned into a massive, high-stakes mission. Clenching her fists with renewed resolve, she violently shoves down her crippling anxiety to focus solely on the looming goal ahead. Recalling the profound gratitude and deep affection she holds for the knight, she silently vows to endure anything if it helps the man she cherishes. Sitting up straight with burning determination, Sophia formally bows her head and loudly begs Hans to train her to the absolute fullest. Meanwhile, a fully uniformed Gilbert arrives at the Royal Military Headquarters to assist a frustrated commander with a highly urgent interrogation. The commander grimly reports that they captured a stubborn infiltrator from the enemy nation of Eratos hiding deep inside the royal castle. Eratos, a hot-blooded country bordering Ioria to the south, recently engaged in a tense border skirmish with the kingdom. A stoic investigator firmly asks a captured spy what specific classified information he desires to know. Raising two fingers, the interrogator specifically demands the identities of the infiltrator's collaborators and their ultimate objective. He sharply deduces that since the infiltration lasted several weeks, a high-ranking collaborator must be operating within the kingdom's borders. The battered prisoner initially refuses to talk until a terrifyingly imposing Gilbert Forster enters the room, instantly shattering his resolve. Gilbert smoothly reveals that the second prince of Eratos ordered the infiltration with Count Barda's help, casually mocking the spy for coming alone. Knowing he personally handled Count Barda's son's arrest for illegal trade, Gilbert notes the old man's grudge made him an easy target for Eratos. Adjusting his glove with an intimidating glare, the knight coldly commands the spy to hand over the leaked information. Meanwhile, an ominous rumor begins circulating in the shadows that Marquis Forster deeply dotes on a mysterious pet cat. A suspicious man carefully examines a secret document detailing Gilbert's recent, highly unusual activities. The shady informant smugly discusses the bizarre rumors of the terrifying magic knight obsessing over a mere feline. Questioning the validity of the animal cover story, the shadowed figure sharply demands to know everything about this hidden target. Back in the interrogation room, the captured spy chuckles nervously under Gilbert's overwhelming, suffocating presence. Satisfied with the extracted intelligence, the lead investigator officially concludes the successful interrogation session. Gripping the door handle to leave, Gilbert's intense thoughts darkly wander back to his lovely, adorable little kitten. The bleeding spy weakly scoffs from his chair, pitifully mocking the concept of a terrifying monster like Gilbert actually loving someone. Clenching his fist violently, Gilbert firmly declares his absolute refusal to involve her in his dangerous political affairs. Unfazed by the threat, the prisoner cynically taunts the knight's painfully naive and carefree attitude. With a solemn, shadowed expression, Gilbert agonizingly acknowledges that his beloved has already been caught up in his dark world for far too long. He whispers Sophia's name into the quiet air, his voice heavy with profound, protective longing. Later that evening at the Grand Forster estate, the diligent staff excitedly prepare to greet Lord Gilbert upon hearing approaching hooves. A highly flustered Sophia joins the waiting servants as Hans unusually questions why the master looks so extraordinarily drained today. Sophia anxiously notices his tightly pressed lips and furrowed brow, silently worrying about his noticeably exhausted complexion. Walking past the staff with a heavy aura, Gilbert ignores their greetings and immediately demands to know how Sophia is doing. Startled by his uncharacteristic intensity, a confused Hans quickly points out that Lady Sophia is standing right beside him. Looking up with wide, concerned eyes, Sophia nervously welcomes Lord Gilbert back to the safety of the estate. Without uttering a single word, Gilbert suddenly reaches his large, gloved hand out toward the surprised girl. Grabbing her hand firmly, he swiftly drags a completely bewildered Sophia away from the gathering and down the quiet hallway. The panicked butler shouts after them, desperately asking what has gotten into the normally composed and stoic master. Stopping in the dim corridor, a deeply troubled Gilbert softly asks for her forgiveness and sincerely thanks her for waiting for him. A bewildered Sophia stares up at her master, wondering what on earth has come over him as she notes how utterly unlike him this is. Gently holding the flustered maid, Gilbert instructs his butler to prepare a meal while promising to speak with him shortly. Nervous energy consumes Sophia as she frantically tries to prepare tea, her trembling hands clinking the delicate porcelain. Noticing her anxiety, Gilbert urges her to be honest about what is wrong, but a stammering Sophia quickly deflects the concern. Fumbling the teapot in her haste, Sophia immediately apologizes as Gilbert steps in to gently assist her. His intense gaze softens as he looks at her, softly requesting that she rely on him more. Overwhelmed by his tenderness, a heavily blushing Sophia whispers her thanks and promises to prepare the tea right away. Regaining her composure, The dutiful maid gracefully serves a fresh pot of tea to a seated Gilbert. Watching him enjoy the warm food and drink, Sophia feels a wave of relief as his tense expression finally begins to soften. A heavy, pensive silence settles over the room as the two sit closely together on the elegant sofa. Unable to hide her concern, Sophia reaches out to gently touch his cheek, asking if something happened to make him so tired. Realizing the intimacy of her sudden gesture, she violently flinches back and stammers a frantic apology. Her face erupts in a fiery blush as her mind races, utterly shocked that she unconsciously caressed Lord Gilbert's face. Brushing off the incident, Gilbert warmly pats her head and thanks her for worrying about him. Completely overwhelmed by embarrassment, Sophia blurts out a quick goodnight and turns to flee the room. Gilbert watches her retreating figure in silence, his expression hardening into a look of cold determination. The narrative shifts to the aftermath of Gilbert's interrogation, detailing how the king's special forces secured a warrant for Count Barda's mansion. A stern, bespectacled investigator named Lord Fecht arrives at the estate on horseback, leading a contingent of armed guards. Taking in the sight of the decaying, overgrown mansion, the men note that the once grand estate now resembles a total ruin. Gilbert's morning assembly is abruptly interrupted as a subordinate swings the door open, announcing an urgent visitor. Striding confidently into the room, Lord Fecht announces that he has official business with Marquis Gilbert Forster. The investigator reveals that a raid on Count Barda's estate uncovered a mountain of documents directly concerning the Marquis. Handing over a worn leather book, Lord Fecht explains that the Count aided the infiltrators specifically to enact his revenge against Gilbert. Gilbert reads the bitter diary entries detailing how the Count blamed the hateful Black Knight for his son's arrest and his family's total ruin. The diary outlines a plot to trade Erato's intel for information on Gilbert's weaknesses, sparking outrage among Gilbert's eavesdropping subordinates. The chilling entries narrow down the target to someone with light brown hair and deep green eyes, vowing to punish whoever is precious to the Marquis. Lord Fecht confirms that the grudge was the undeniable motive for treason, though he admits the treacherous Count is currently missing. Recognizing that he is the root cause of this dangerous plot, a resolute Gilbert declares that he cannot simply ignore the threat and will take action. Lord Fecht agrees to let him proceed but firmly expects the Marquis to share any findings from his independent investigation. Fired up by the disrespect shown to their vice-captain, Gilbert's loyal knights aggressively rally to make the arrest themselves while a colleague sighs and promises to get official permission for their rogue mission. Apologizing for dragging her into his personal affairs, Lord Gilbert quickly dismisses any concerns about his beloved cat's safety. He solemnly warns that if his enemies truly seek revenge, they might brutally target something incredibly precious to him. Hearing the grim warning, the deeply concerned butler immediately suggests forbidding Sophia from attending the upcoming ball. Gilbert explains that the missing Count Barda harbors a dangerous grudge and has sparked alarming rumors across the kingdom. The loyal butler listens intently as Gilbert reveals the specific rumor claiming the fearsome knight fiercely dotes on a cat. Staring down thoughtfully, Gilbert hesitates as the butler points out that a simple rumor about a feline should be perfectly harmless. Gilbert confesses that when questioned about the cat's appearance, he foolishly described Sophia's exact hair and eye color without thinking. He fears that if he brings her to the ball, the sharp-eyed nobility will instantly realize Sophia is his rumored beloved cat. Unaware of the looming danger, an excited Sophia enthusiastically practices her dance steps in the empty hallway. Counting her steps with a joyful spin, the maid freezes instantly as she hears Lord Gilbert suddenly call out her name. Startled mid-step, the blushing girl turns around to find the imposing Marquis unexpectedly standing in the doorway. Apologizing for his sudden intrusion, the curious lord asks why she is practicing alone in the guest room at such a late hour. Sophia nervously admits she was reviewing his dance lessons because her complete lack of physical training makes her anxious about the ball. When Gilbert gently offers to cancel their attendance entirely, Sophia tightly grips her skirt and firmly refuses to back down. Flashing a radiant smile, she declares her mind is fully made up because she is genuinely looking forward to dancing with him. Touched by her sweet sincerity, Gilbert listens closely as she shyly admits to holding a lifelong admiration for grand balls. She fondly recalls reading a treasured picture book about a dancing prince and princess, a cherished gift from her parents. Even with its torn pages carefully mended by her mother, that simple fairy tale book serves as enduring proof of her parents' profound love. Gilbert gently compares her cherished book to a knight's sacred tale, understanding how the story gave her the quiet strength to keep living. Encouraged by his warm understanding, Sophia excitedly asks if they can practice the basic dance steps together just a little bit more. In silent response, the stoic lord gracefully extends his large, scarred hand toward her and softly calls out her name. Bowing with undeniable elegance, Gilbert humbly admits he is no prince but solemnly asks for the honor of a dance. Sophia stares up in absolute awe, completely captivated by the rare, tender warmth radiating from the fierce knight's eyes. Blushing furiously over her clumsiness, she hesitates, but Gilbert smoothly reassures her that dancing naturally requires a dedicated partner. Taking her delicate hands in his, the powerful Marquis gently pulls her close and confidently promises to guide her every step. Bathed in the ethereal glow of the moonlight, the imposing knight and the gentle maid begin to seamlessly waltz across the quiet room. Impressed by her fluid grace, Gilbert praises her natural talent while a flustered Sophia strictly credits his masterful lead. Suddenly losing her footing, the clumsy maid gasps as she accidentally stumbles directly against Gilbert's broad chest. Flustered but overjoyed, Sophia eagerly envisions the upcoming royal ball where they will proudly dance together in grand formal attire. Walking happily by his side, Sophia realizes that her growing bond with Lord Gilbert is a beautiful reality she admires even more than a fairy tale. Clutching her collar with a grateful smile, a young blonde girl named Sophia promises to practice her embroidery hard. The cheerful maid Karina checks on her progress, hoping to see the beautiful piece finished before the upcoming ball. Fearing she might run out of thread before the deadline, Sophia hesitates as Karina suggests a quick shopping trip to the market. Noticing Sophia has finished her daily studies, Karina insists on accompanying her because the city streets are far too dangerous to walk alone. Sophia is stunned to learn that the strict butler Hans personally ordered Karina to stay by her side until the evening party. With a playful wink, the energetic maid happily declares that her primary job right now is to escort Sophia on her shopping errand. Meanwhile, the tense atmosphere of the bustling capital hangs heavy as the investigation team struggles to gather solid information. Frustrated knights deduce that the fugitive Count Barda must still be lurking somewhere in the capital since he never passed any checkpoints. An impatient Kevin stresses the urgent need to capture Barda before the party, while a stern Tobias barks at him to focus on a thorough investigation. The stakes violently escalate as the knights realize Sophia's life might be in danger, prompting a frantic rush to alert Marquis Forster. Suddenly appearing on the scene, Lord Albert cheerfully greets the Marquis and casually asks why he is patrolling the city streets. Gilbert maintains his cold composure, explaining that he is actively questioning the locals alongside the Second Division. Staring intensely into the young lord's eyes, Gilbert abruptly asks Albert if he is personally acquainted with the fugitive Count Barda. Albert casually confirms speaking with the Count near his residence a few days ago, even lending the man a carriage when his broke down. Grabbing Albert's arm, Gilbert listens intently as the Lord recalls Barda asking what kind of gift would please the Marquis to repay a supposed debt. The Marquis silently processes this bizarre revelation, wondering exactly what a traitor like Barda could possibly know about his personal life. Admitting he knows nothing about Gilbert's preferences, Albert mentions recently spotting the Marquis wandering the Market District Plaza. Albert notes how highly surprising it was to see the famously formal Marquis dressed in plain clothes and shopping on his day off. Shock begins to wash over Gilbert as Albert innocently wonders if the Marquis was secretly meeting someone special in town. Hesitating over the delicate matter, Albert reveals he happened to cross paths with a familiar young lady right before spotting the Marquis. The mere mention of a young lady instantly triggers a chilling realization in the hardened investigator's mind. Describing a girl with light brown hair and deep green eyes, Albert realizes with a jolt that Barda was actually asking about his fiancée's cousin. A terrifying truth shatters Gilbert's composure as he realizes Count Barda has already learned about Sophia's existence. Panic flashes across the Marquis's face as he suddenly lunges forward, startling the young lord with his aggressive intensity. Barking fierce orders to take Albert's full statement, Gilbert reveals the horrifying fact that Count Barda is wanted for colluding with foreign enemies. Leaping onto his horse, Gilbert desperately hopes Sophia is safe within the market while he races to warn her of the impending danger. Tearing through the city streets at breakneck speed, the frantic Marquis screams Sophia's name into the rushing wind. Bursting through the manor doors with terrifying force, Gilbert violently startles a panicked Hans. Gilbert urgently demands to know Sophia's whereabouts, only to hear the crushing news that she just left to go shopping with Karina. Hans's next words freeze the Marquis's blood entirely as he reports frequent sightings of a highly suspicious man approaching the estate's servants. Hans the butler nervously approaches Gilbert, hesitating to report that surely nothing has happened. The chilling realization sets in that the suspicious man is Count Barda, and his ultimate target is Sophia. Meanwhile, Sophia happily thanks Karina for a fun outing, admitting she completely lost track of time. Karina cheerfully suggests they get going because she is starving, completely unaware of the menacing figure watching them. A tall, shadowy man in a suit and hat silently blocks their path in the narrow alleyway. Karina halts in her tracks, nervously asking who this intimidating stranger could be. The man mutters to himself, confirming that the girls just stepped out of the Marquis's carriage. His cold gaze locks onto Sophia, specifically noting her light brown hair and deep green eyes. Stepping closer, the menacing figure bluntly asks if she is the woman they call Sophia. Karina bravely throws her arms wide to shield her friend, fiercely demanding the stranger answer who he is first. Realizing the grave danger, Karina desperately grabs Sophia's hand and screams at her to run. Shoving Sophia away, a terrified Karina begs her friend to escape, ignoring Sophia's cries that she cannot leave her behind. Count Barda draws a gleaming dagger, declaring that destroying Sophia is the only way to ruin Lord Gilbert's happiness. With a desperate cry, Sophia lunges forward and pushes Karina out of the deadly blade's path. Time seems to slow as Sophia flashes back to a peaceful moment, wishing she could have talked so much more with Gilbert. A bittersweet smile crosses her mind as she deeply regrets not knowing that peaceful encounter would be their last time. Count Barda viciously drives his dagger downward with a curse, but a sudden, invisible barrier violently deflects his strike. The assassin stumbles back with a frustrated grunt, screaming in disbelief as his weapon fails to pierce the strange shield. Gilbert's knights suddenly surround the bewildered Count, mocking his pathetic attempt while advising him to cease his pointless resistance. A panicked Barda wildly blames Gilbert for ruining his life, shocked to realize the Marquis dispatched his entire squad. Gilbert stands tall and furious behind the trembling Sophia, his dark aura radiating absolute authority. Staring up in sheer awe, Sophia realizes that the transparent magical wall protecting her was cast by Lord Gilbert himself. Stepping past the terrified maid, Gilbert coldly tells the cursing Count that investigating him should have revealed the deadly consequences of touching what is his. He glares down at the pathetic assassin, stating that Barda should have easily predicted his wrath. With eyes full of murderous intent, Gilbert declares that treason and attempted murder are serious crimes. The knights swiftly bind the Count to prevent escape, urging their enraged vice-captain to hold back while instructing Kevin to look after the girls. Gilbert immediately turns his back on the prisoner, his voice softening entirely as he asks Sophia if she is okay. Extending a gentle, gloved hand toward her, he offers a sincere apology for arriving late. Overwhelmed with relief at seeing him, Sophia calls his name as Gilbert breathes a heavy sigh of gratitude that she is safe. Pulling her into a desperate, protective embrace, Gilbert holds Sophia tightly against his chest, shielding her from the nightmare. Reassuring her, someone gently notes that her elegant dress will easily cover a mere scraped knee. Sophia deeply apologizes for causing so much worry, while the relieved head maid expresses gratitude that she wasn't seriously hurt. Reflecting on the frantic search, Sophia pieces together that Count Barda's bitter grudge against Lord Gilbert made her a prime target. Gilbert pulls her into a protective embrace, whispering his immense relief before turning their focus to the upcoming soiree. The head maid offers Karina the prestigious chance to study as her official aide, bringing tears of joy to the young maid's eyes. Smiling warmly, the senior maid tenderly strokes Karina's cheek and praises her for working so incredibly hard up to this point. Bursting with excitement, the maids excitedly declare they will use the remaining days to rest and thoroughly prepare for the grand event. It is a well-known fact that the strict head maid once served as the loyal lady-in-waiting to the previous Marchioness. Feeling slightly unworthy of such elite guidance, Sophia diligently follows the head maid's strict command to keep her back perfectly straight. The head maid sternly but warmly reminds Sophia to maintain her brilliant smile and look everyone straight in the eye. Earning high praise for her surprisingly proper gestures, Sophia beams with happiness as she promises to speak with absolute confidence. Clenching her fists, Sophia vows to push herself to the absolute limit to become truly worthy of standing by Lord Gilbert's side. During her makeup session, Sophia instantly relaxes upon recognizing the familiar, calming scent of bergamot from Lord Gilbert's personal perfume. The teasing maid gently begs her to relax, joking that her furious blushing completely masks the color of her makeup. The maids expertly tighten her corset, marveling at the kyanite jewels chosen by Gilbert that perfectly match his striking gaze. Gazing into the mirror, the head maid softly commands Sophia to finally relax because she looks undeniably breathtaking. Sophia emerges at the top of the grand staircase, looking like a flawless vision in her majestic, ruffled gown. Radiant and glowing with newfound confidence, she captivates the room with her breathtaking beauty. Blushing timidly, she softly thanks him for the gorgeous dress and nervously asks if it truly looks good on her. Utterly stunned by her radiant appearance, Gilbert stares in silent awe before quietly confirming that it suits her perfectly. A faint blush spreads across the hardened knight's cheeks as he genuinely calls her beautiful, bringing a joyful smile to her lips. The proud head maid praises her unimaginable beauty one last time and warmly urges them to go have a wonderful time. Taking his offered hand, Sophia feels her racing heart instantly melt into calmness at the familiar warmth of his touch. Walking firmly by his side, she steels her resolve, knowing that no matter what happens tonight, everything will be okay. Approaching the towering spires of the royal castle, Sophia feels an unbreakable sense of security as long as their hands remain intertwined. Entering the dazzlingly crowded hall for the year's first soiree, Gilbert immediately warns her to stay close to his side. The bustling room abruptly drops into a dead silence, leaving Sophia bewildered by the sudden, heavy weight of everyone's attention. Piercing eyes of curiosity and gasps of pure surprise flood the room as the nobles lock onto the striking pair. Gilbert apologizes for the intense stares caused by his rare appearance, but Sophia firmly shakes her head to dismiss his worries. Gazing fiercely into his eyes, she boldly declares she isn't afraid because he is the only person she sees in the entire room. The grand hall erupts with excitement as the announcer heralds the magnificent arrival of His Majesty the King and Her Highness the Queen. The high society debut soiree officially begins, requiring nervous debutantes to hand their name cards to the announcer before lining up to greet the royal family. In order of their called names, the young men receive a white collar flower from the king, while the queen places a single flower in the women's hair as absolute proof of their glorious debut. Feeling deeply out of place, an overwhelmed Sophia hangs her head and apologizes profusely to Lord Gilbert. She confesses her anxiety over being the only debutante not escorted by her parents, but Gilbert instantly brushes off the concern and firmly urges her to have more confidence. As the announcer suddenly calls out her name, Gilbert gazes deeply into her eyes and praises her true beauty. Stepping up to the royal throne, Sophia is greeted by the radiant and gentle smile of the queen herself. Utterly captivated by the royal's breathtaking elegance and dignified aura, Sophia manages a breathless confirmation. Panic spikes through the young debutante as she desperately commands herself to smile, only to freeze up completely under the intense pressure. Noting the girl's stiff posture, the king playfully chides his wife for startling her, prompting a gentle chuckle from the queen. Leaning in with maternal warmth, the queen places a delicate flower in Sophia's hair and whispers that she must first believe in herself. Casting a knowing glance toward the imposing marquis, she softly adds that doing so will allow him to truly believe in her as well. Tears of profound gratitude well up in Sophia's eyes as she accepts the queen's heartfelt encouragement. Realizing the queen knows the truth about Gilbert's abilities and her own dark circumstances, a deeply moved Sophia silently vows to do her absolute best. Returning to Gilbert's side, she marvels at what wonderful people the royals are and gently touches the aster flower now resting in her hair. Clasping Gilbert's hand tightly, she remembers that the aster's true meaning in the language of flowers is a desperate plea to believe in her. Acknowledging the emotional moment, Gilbert smoothly pivots the conversation, reminding her that they must now go greet His Highness, Prince Matthias. To Sophia's absolute shock, Gilbert casually reveals that Her Highness the Princess is also in attendance and specifically requested to meet her. A cheerful voice calls out to Gilbert, leading Sophia to realize that Prince Matthias has been happily telling the princess everything about her. The elegant Prince Matthias greets the pair warmly, pleased to see them both attending the grand ball. The royal greeting is abruptly shattered by a harsh, booming voice screaming Sophia's name across the hall. Sophia flinches violently, freezing in absolute terror as a chillingly familiar presence pierces through the festive atmosphere. Turning around, she faces her worst nightmare, an unexpected and terrifying reunion with her abusive uncle. The furious uncle stalks toward her with her sneering aunt trailing behind, aggressively demanding to know what she is doing at such a prestigious event. Dark memories of relentless violence and cruel, cutting words instantly flood Sophia's mind, paralyzing her with dread. But remembering the unshakable strength of the Marquis standing right beside her, A new spark of defiance ignites in her heart. Refusing to be the cowering victim any longer, she vows to herself that she will absolutely never bow her head to them again. Pasting on a flawlessly serene smile, the transformed debutante greets her wicked relatives with startling, radiant grace. Enraged by her calm composure, her uncle screams at her again, but Sophia smoothly explains that a very generous gentleman came to her aid. Stepping forward like a protective shadow, the Marquis glares down at the trembling uncle and chillingly introduces himself as Gilbert Forster. Facing the nervous Baron Lanish, Gilbert formally apologizes for his discourtesy, explaining he met Sophia entirely by chance. Masking his cruelty with a deceitful smile, the Baron claims his family always cherished the girl like a true daughter. The sycophantic Baron bows deeply, swearing he would have paid respects first had he known she was under the Marquis's care. The atmosphere shifts instantly as Crown Prince Abel reveals himself, leaving the horrified Baron trembling at his own royal discourtesy. Stammering his absolute honor, the Baron cowers while the prince casually recalls admiring his beautiful daughter at society gatherings. A heavy tension drops over the room as the Crown Prince reveals it was actually he who found Lady Sophia. Pinning the sweating nobleman with a sharp gaze, the prince begins to unravel the truth behind how the Baron treated the girl. The Crown Prince drops his friendly facade, coldly demanding to know exactly what the Baron did to Sophia that differed so drastically from his own daughter. Furious at being exposed, the cornered Baron snaps and violently lunges toward a startled Sophia, screaming at her for saying unnecessary things. Before the violent outburst can escalate, the panicked Baroness hastily claims illness and drags her disgraced husband away. Watching the cowards flee, Prince Abel smirks and remarks that the Baron clearly harbors many dark secrets he desperately wants to keep hidden. Breathing a shaky sigh of relief, Sophia gazes up at her protector in the wake of her abusive relative's departure. Gilbert gently reassures the shaken girl, vowing to remain firmly by her side and urging her not to space out. Dismissing her gratitude, Gilbert reminds her that the royal soiree has only just begun and they must maintain their composure. Kneeling gracefully before the throne, Sophia expresses her deepest gratitude to the Crown Prince for reaching out his hand to save her. The Crown Prince casually admits his intervention started as a mere whim, yet he confidently declares it was the best choice he could have made. Gilbert warmly agrees with the royal sentiment just as the prince turns to introduce a very special guest. Crown Princess Emilia practically sparkles with excitement, thrilled to finally meet the famous little kitten everyone talks about. As Emilia fawns over Sophia's adorable forest green eyes, a completely flustered Gilbert desperately begs her to stop calling his ward a cat. Unable to hold back his amusement, Prince Abel bursts into uncontrollable laughter at Gilbert's highly entertaining discomfort. Watching from the sidelines, Captain Kevin smirks as he finally understands why he was assigned guard duty instead of the Marquis. Annoyed by the relentless royal teasing, Gilbert coldly declares he has nothing more to say, prompting a chuckling Abel to delay their chat until tomorrow. With a stiff and formal bow, the utterly exasperated Marquis abruptly excuses himself from the royal presence. Prince Abel cheerfully promises to visit again tomorrow while a flustered Gilbert hastily escorts Sophia away from the laughing royals. Startled by his unusually brisk pace, Sophia calls out to Lord Gilbert and anxiously asks what is wrong. Gilbert halts and sheepishly apologizes, admitting he completely lost his composure because he is not used to being teased. Extending a gentle, gloved hand toward her, Gilbert softly requests that Sophia choose him as her very first dance partner. Blushing deeply under his tender gaze, Sophia places her hand in his and accepts the absolute honor. Gliding effortlessly across the ballroom floor, Sophia marvels at how naturally her feet move to the music compared to her lonely practice sessions. Beaming with pure joy, Sophia realizes that dancing is wonderfully easy and fun when she is guided by her beloved Lord Gilbert. Caught in a beautiful illusion, Sophia feels as though the entire world has faded away until only she and the imposing Lord Gilbert remain, thanking him for the magical dance. Noting her exhaustion, Gilbert smoothly suggests she rest before any other man dares to ask her for a dance. Just as Gilbert thoughtfully offers her some refreshing fruit water, a familiar male voice suddenly calls out to a shocked Sophia. Lord Albert warmly congratulates Sophia on her debut, while Bianca feigns surprise at the unexpected reunion with her childhood friend. Staring at the girl who tormented her past, Sophia stiffens as Bianca softly calls out her name. Refusing to show a defeated face while standing by the fierce knight's side, Sophia bravely commands herself not to look down. When Bianca deceptively praises her lovely gown, Sophia proudly reveals that Lord Gilbert personally prepared it for her. Suddenly slipping, Bianca maliciously hurls her glass of red wine directly at Sophia with a sharp cry. To the wicked girl's absolute shock, the crimson liquid violently splashes against an invisible magical barrier surrounding the maid. Stepping forward with a terrifying aura, Gilbert coldly declares that no one can ever harm Sophia while he stands guard. A trembling Bianca immediately plays the victim, blaming the thrown glass on her drunken clumsiness while an annoyed Albert suggests they leave. Watching her abuser prepare to flee, Sophia realizes that if she stays silent now, she will forever live in terrifying submission. Tired of constantly giving up and running away, the brave maid decides she must finally confront her childhood tormentor. Straightening her back just as the head maid taught her, Sophia boldly calls out to the retreating noblewoman. Hiding her lingering terror behind a flawless smile, Sophia desperately asks Bianca why she harbors such vicious hatred toward her. Maintaining her polite composure, Sophia calmly asks her cousin to explain the root of her relentless cruelty. Looking directly into her abuser's eyes, the sincere maid gently offers to fix whatever is truly tearing them apart. Bianca wildly grits her teeth, completely infuriated by Sophia's unyielding kindness and sudden show of strength. Ignoring the seething rage bubbling within the noblewoman, Sophia gently reminds her that they are family. As Albert foolishly tries to agree with Sophia's sweet sentiment, the absolute fury inside Bianca finally reaches its boiling point. Completely dropping her sweet facade, Bianca fiercely screams that she has always despised Sophia from the very beginning. Screaming in absolute disgust, Bianca venomously admits she loathed how naturally beautiful and deeply loved Sophia always was. Her face contorted with ugly rage, the jealous girl violently demands to know why Sophia always outshone her at every turn. Refusing to back down, Sophia realizes that Bianca's claim of having no interest in her is a complete and utter lie. Staring back with unshakable resolve, Sophia boldly points out that Bianca was secretly obsessed with watching her every single move. The furious noblewoman snarls, bitterly accusing Sophia of constantly playing the sweet, innocent victim loved by everyone around her. Shrieking in raw envy, Bianca reveals her burning jealousy over the beautiful clothes, the deep kindness, and even the engagement Sophia once had. Gloating with a twisted grin, Bianca cruelly mocks her dead parents and celebrates stealing the happy life that originally belonged to Sophia. As a chilling coldness spreads through her limbs, a heartbroken Sophia realizes she was nothing but an obstacle to be permanently erased. A wave of profound sadness washes over the gentle maid as she tragically remembers the warm smile Bianca once gave her when they were just innocent children. Shattering the ballroom's elegance, Bianca viciously screams that she was glad when she thought Sophia had collapsed and died. Her eyes narrowing with venomous hatred, the furious cousin prepares to unleash her darkest truth. Howling that it would have been better if Sophia had never existed, Bianca shatters Sophia's secret hope of ever laughing together again. Trembling in absolute shock, the devastated debutante stares blankly as the cruel words pierce her fragile heart. Moving with swift precision, Marquis Gilbert Forster steps behind Sophia and gently covers her ears to block out the venom. Glaring with icy lethal intent, the Marquis coldly declares that Sophia does not need to listen to this garbage anymore. Sweating under the Marquis's terrifying aura, a panicked Albert can only stammer his fiancée's name. Desperately seeking an explanation, Albert confronts Bianca, asking if she ever truly worried about Sophia when she ran away from home. Grabbing her wrist forcefully, the shocked young lord watches his fiancée stumble over her words in a pathetic display of guilt. A booming voice suddenly shatters the tension as Count Franz storms into the hall, demanding to know what his son is doing. Masking his fury with political grace, the Count greets Marquis Forster and asks if his foolish son has committed a rude offense. Staring him down with absolute zero warmth, Gilbert chillingly reveals that Albert's fiancée just openly insulted a woman very dear to him. Realizing the immense danger of angering the Marquis, Count Franz immediately bows and offers his deepest apologies to Lady Sophia. Attempting to de-escalate the crisis, Sophia bravely steps forward to take the blame for the uproar, while Albert desperately tries to defend his ruined fiancée. Shutting his son down instantly, the Count orders Albert home and ruthlessly declares he is severing all ties with Baron Lanish's household. Paralyzed by the devastating social execution, Bianca listens in horror as the surrounding aristocrats whisper that she can never be trusted again. Abandoned by her cowardly fiancé and stripped of her social standing, the ruined girl realizes she has no way to return home. Clutching her dress in bitter tears, Bianca vows to never accept Sophia's pity, but Gilbert smoothly interrupts to offer his own carriage instead. Watching her former tormentor walk away in total defeat, Sophia stands frozen in a whirlwind of complicated emotions. Looking up at her fierce protector, she whispers the Marquis's name as he gazes back with unexpected gentleness. Overwhelmed by guilt, the young debutante bows her head and apologizes, wishing she had handled the confrontation much better. Spiraling into self-blame, she wonders if finding the right words could have somehow salvaged the broken bond with her cousin. Sensing her heavy burden, Gilbert steps closer and firmly assures the trembling girl that she did her absolute best. Refusing to remain a helpless victim, Sophia declares she doesn't want to always be protected, prompting Gilbert to remind her she doesn't have to force herself to be strong. Recognizing her emotional exhaustion, the Marquis gently takes her hand and guides her away to get some fresh air. Retreating to a quiet garden pavilion, Gilbert softly asks if he pushed her too hard, but Sophia smiles and admits she was truly happy. Staring into the night, she finds peace in knowing that she was finally able to face Bianca and speak to her as an equal. Clad in a breathtaking dress and standing proudly beside the realm's most feared Marquis, she embraces the surreal moment. Calling the extravagant joy a one-night dream, she cherishes the memory of making her social debut and sharing a dance with him. Gently touching her cheek, Gilbert searches her melancholic eyes and softly urges her to speak her true feelings so he can understand her heart. Admitting her deep fear of loneliness, a stunned Sophia questions if this magical moment is nothing but a fleeting dream. Gilbert locks eyes with the trembling girl, earnestly asking if remaining by his side until morning will allow her to keep smiling forever. Flushed red with disbelief, Sophia stammers that such a grand wish is far beyond her, insisting someone far more wonderful deserves to stand beside him. Brushing away her anxious doubts, Gilbert firmly and gently grasps her hands. His expression hardens as he admits his long-standing internal struggle, firmly rejecting the idea of settling for a conventional, arranged happiness. While Sophia desperately wishes to voice how much joy he has already given her, her overwhelming emotions choke the words in her throat as Gilbert confesses his fear of endangering her again. Staring intensely into her eyes, Gilbert passionately declares his desire for her, vowing to keep her close and personally erase every ounce of her sorrow. Seeing her own helpless reflection in his intense gaze, Sophia struggles to find her voice. Clinging to his strong hands, she silently vows that if he truly wishes it, she will gladly remain by his side. With tears welling in her eyes, Sophia finally shouts her adoration, desperately wishing to belong to him forever. Overcome with emotion, Gilbert pulls the tearful girl into a desperate, crushing embrace. Burying his face into her shoulder, Gilbert softly apologizes and admits he can never let her go. Hearing those precious words of love for the first time since her parents died, Sophia fiercely grips his coat and begs him never to release her. Tossing aside her usual selflessness, she tearfully demands to seize her own happiness and begs to stay with him until the end of time. Caressing her tear-stained cheek, Gilbert admits he never believed he would be allowed to desire such pure happiness. Leaning in, Gilbert seals their vow with a tender kiss as a silent, profound gratitude washes over them both. Resting her head against his chest, Sophia softly confesses she has no desire to return to the crowded ballroom. Gilbert gently reminds her that abruptly fleeing her very first ball might invite unwanted scandal. Stepping back with unwavering resolve, he formally declares that she will soon become his wife. Sophia stares back in utter shock at the idea of a girl with nothing becoming a marchioness, but Gilbert immediately dismisses her panicked doubts. He fiercely reaffirms his unbreakable vow to protect her, insisting that her presence by his side is the only thing he requires. A newfound courage ignites within Sophia's heart, realizing she can endure any harsh glare or pain if it guarantees her place beside him. She silently vows to push past her limits and grow undeniably stronger for his sake. Later that night, Gilbert gently carries the exhausted, sleeping Sophia through the mansion, quietly instructing the butler Hans to prepare her for bed and meet him afterward. Gazing down at her peaceful face, Gilbert feels an unfamiliar, overwhelming warmth flooding his chest. Pressing a tender kiss to her forehead, he whispers a quiet word of gratitude to the slumbering girl. Unable to contain his overflowing emotions, he softly bids her good night and confesses his love once more. The next morning, a groggy Sophia wakes to the cheerful greeting of her friend Karina, thoroughly embarrassed by her terrible oversleeping. Karina beams with absolute delight, excitedly congratulating the stunned Sophia on her sudden engagement to the Marquis. While Sophia nervously asks about their daily chores, Karina playfully reveals she has been promoted to personal handmaiden while the entire mansion celebrates the joyous news. A joyful Karina excitedly announces that she has been officially assigned as Sophia's personal maid, though a flustered Sophia nervously insists she can handle her own preparations. The commotion is suddenly interrupted when Lord Gilbert quietly enters the room, causing Sophia to turn to him with a flustered blush as he softly calls her name. Beaming with pride, Karina declares that becoming a handmaiden has always been her greatest dream, warmly adding that serving Lady Sophia specifically makes the achievement incredibly wonderful. Sitting close together in the quiet evening, Gilbert gently asks Sophia about her day, indulging in the simple, comforting routine that has become their treasured daily ritual. Blushing shyly, Sophia presents Gilbert with a beautifully embroidered silk handkerchief, explaining that she used the needles and thread from her very first shopping trip to secretly convey her growing feelings. Gazing down at the delicate embroidery, the stoic knight is visibly moved by the thoughtful gift and softly thanks her while gently tracing the careful stitches. Misreading his quiet reaction, a worried Sophia nervously asks if he dislikes the handkerchief, prompting Gilbert to immediately deny it and assure her of his appreciation. Reaching out to gently stroke her hair, Gilbert praises her beautiful embroidery skills and promises to treasure the gift forever, bringing a bright smile of relief to Sophia's face. Glowing with happiness, Sophia thanks the Lord for promising to use her handmade gift, while Gilbert softly replies that she never needs to thank him for simply appreciating her hard work. Standing closely by his side, Sophia feels an overwhelming sense of pure happiness blossom within her, as a comforting warmth spreads deep into her heart like a gentle sunbeam. Gently cupping her cheek, Gilbert vows to make her even happier from this day forward, leaving Sophia to marvel at the profound joy of being so deeply loved by the man she adores. The narrative pauses to celebrate the couple's newly confirmed happiness and unbreakable bond, promising to return next winter for the thrilling continuation of their romantic journey. The loyal head butler formally approaches Sophia to express his deepest gratitude, sincerely thanking her for finally accepting Lord Gilbert's heartfelt engagement proposal. Recalling the dramatic events of the recent royal party, Sophia humbly shakes her head and insists there is absolutely no need for the staff to thank her for simply following her heart. She remembers how the original plan was merely for Gilbert to escort her gently to soften his terrifying public image, a simple calculated act that blossomed into something entirely genuine. Flashing back to the party, she remembers Gilbert fiercely declaring that he could never let her go, his intense, protective confession completely shattering their initial pretense. The memory leaves Sophia deeply flustered as she realizes how far they strayed from their fake arrangement, acknowledging that pretending to be on good terms had rapidly evolved into true love. The sly butler immediately dismisses her worries by smoothly hinting that capturing the Lord's heart was his true plan all along, leaving Sophia blinking in sheer confusion at his cheeky admission. Quickly shifting the focus away from his secret scheming, the butler takes on a serious tone and announces that it is time to discuss the critical steps of their upcoming future together. He officially informs Sophia that she must now master the strict etiquette expected of a future countess, as the estate will immediately commence the formal engagement process and lavish wedding preparations. Gripped by sudden anxiety, the humble maid nervously asks if she is truly the right person to stand by the powerful Marquis, prompting the dedicated butler to warmly promise his unwavering support. He firmly rejects her self-doubt by declaring that her kind heart makes her the absolute perfect choice for their master, insisting the entire household is overjoyed specifically because it is her. Moved to tears by his unwavering support, Sophia sincerely thanks the loyal butler for his kindness, while he smiles warmly and officially declares the termination of her employment contract as a mere maid. Acknowledging everything she has endured, the butler gently urges her to take some well-deserved rest and thoughtfully promises to have all her meals brought directly to her room. Bowing deeply with a heart full of gratitude, Sophia embraces her brand new destiny and brightly declares how much she looks forward to all the wonderful things waiting in her future. Left alone with her swirling thoughts, Sophia reflects on the whirlwind of dramatic events that completely transformed her life, feeling an unshakable sense of peace despite the overwhelming changes. Clasping her hands tightly over her chest, she firmly resolves to embrace her path and silently vows to never regret choosing to walk proudly beside Lord Gilbert. Her quiet reflection is interrupted when a freshly bathed Gilbert softly calls her name from the doorway, gently inviting her into the room with a relaxed presence that instantly soothes her nerves. Sitting comfortably on the plush sofa, Gilbert tenderly dries her long hair as they share quiet conversation, an incredibly intimate moment that has somehow become their most cherished daily ritual. Basking in the gentle warmth of his touch, Sophia leans into his protective hands and softly whispers a final, profound thank you with her heart overflowing with love. Grateful for the beautiful poetry he read to her, Sophia softly asks Gilbert what happened today. Changing the subject entirely, Gilbert presents the new arrangements as a token of thanks for her recent embroidery. He generously instructs her to move her belongings into the storage space and officially claim the guest room as her own. Startled by the grand offer, Sophia hesitates to take up his time and offers to handle the move alongside Karina. Realizing the scale of the task, Sophia points out that they will need strong men to help replace the heavy furnishings. Explaining the situation, Gilbert notes they must swap out the room's current magical items for non-magical tools he received upon his arrival. Blushing softly, Sophia accepts the kind gesture while quietly remembering her earlier wish to stay close to him. Gilbert assures her that they should receive a formal reply from the master of the house soon, and Sophia confirms she already sent a letter to her parents. Shifting the mood entirely, Gilbert's expression turns deadly serious as he brings up their official engagement contract. Dark memories resurface as Sophia vividly recalls how her cruel uncle and Lord Albert casually erased their childhood promises. Sensing her rising anxiety, Gilbert gently covers her trembling hands and assures her that everything is all right. Staring into his eyes with newfound resolve, Sophia declares she will write the contract of her own will and refuse to let anyone dismiss their bond. Moved by her unwavering determination, Gilbert desperately asks her to promise that she will stay by his side forever. He deeply confesses that no matter what anyone else says, losing her would be far more than he could bear. A flicker of confusion crosses Sophia's face as she wonders exactly what he means by those cryptic words. Watching from afar, a burdened Albert realizes Gilbert is quietly shouldering a massive load to protect her, bitterly doubting his own ability to match such resolve. Pushing aside her doubts, Sophia offers a gentle smile and firmly agrees to the Marquis's heartfelt request. Clenching her fist with undeniable conviction, the resolute girl vows to write her destiny by her own will. Gilbert smiles warmly, hoping to forge an unbreakable promise so he will never be seen as unworthy of her. Squeezing his hand tightly, Sophia silently pledges to do her absolute best for their shared future. The quiet moment shatters as a stunned Kevin bursts into the office, staring in total shock at a massive stack of paperwork. Baffled by the sight, Kevin notes that the vice captain rarely lets so much extra work pile up on his own desk. Peering closer at the towering documents, the knight panics upon realizing they are highly classified special mission files. Calm and composed, Gilbert explains that he personally borrowed the files from Lord Fecht of the Special Ops Unit to investigate a specific matter. Sweating profusely, Kevin reminds him that the Special Ops report directly to the king to handle foreign intelligence and criminal syndicates. The panicked knight stresses the dangerous friction between their divisions ever since Gilbert rejected Special Ops to join the Crown Prince's second unit. Urging caution before the situation escalates, Kevin listens intently as Gilbert reveals a lingering suspicion that has been bothering him. The Marquis connects the dots, explaining that Count Barda originally targeted Sophia for revenge because Gilbert previously exposed his son's illegal trade ring. A chilling revelation drops as Gilbert admits he saw traces of that exact same illegal trade when he shook hands with Baron Lanish at the ball. Turning his gaze toward the window, Gilbert dangerously suspects the Baron's involvement and immediately plans to request a change of guard for His Highness. Prince Abel casually asks Lord Gilbert if anything has changed since word of Lady Sophia spread around the recent evening party. Shocked whispers ripple through the castle as gossiping servants marvel over the true identity of the vice-captain's fiancée. The Forster estate buzzes with lively excitement as the ecstatic maids celebrate Lady Sophia's feelings finally reaching their master. A fellow knight warmly admits he was rooting for the hardworking girl the entire time. A rare, tender smile crosses Gilbert's face as he confidently declares she will become a fine lady of the house. A sharp tap of a pen breaks the brief moment of warmth, signaling it is time to get back to serious business. Shifting the topic, Prince Abel asks Gilbert to report on the suspicious magical signature he sensed from Baron Lanish. Gilbert drops a heavy revelation, suggesting the drug-trafficking son of Baron Barda was directly connected to its production. He explains that the highly addictive narcotic causes intense euphoria and is strictly banned nationwide. Prince Abel points out that such a major drug ring falls firmly under the jurisdiction of the Special Operations Unit. Gilbert agrees, wanting to prevent the second squad from clumsily intervening and worsening relations between the factions. The grim investigation reveals the current Baron and Baroness Lanish have been deeply entrenched in the crime ring for over 5 years. Pondering the timeline, the prince deduces this dark secret was completely hidden from the previous heads of the family. Gilbert admits his true hesitation is protecting Sophia, knowing the Special Operations Unit's notoriously brutal interrogations would force her to be a traumatized witness. Wrapping up the meeting, Prince Abel promises to consult his father on how to proceed while Gilbert expresses his deep gratitude. Before parting ways, a smiling Abel warmly congratulates Gilbert on his engagement, hoping the news helps Lady Sophia look forward to the future. Back at the peaceful estate, a cheerful Karina calls out to Sophia, signaling that it is finally time for a break. A flustered Sophia apologizes for losing track of time, overwhelmed by her rigorous daily schedule of etiquette, academics, and family history. Nervously gripping her teacup, Sophia hesitates before finally gathering the courage to address her loyal maid. Taking a deep breath, Sophia drops a heavy confession, revealing to a stunned Karina that she possesses absolutely no magic power. Sophia desperately explains she wanted to confess the truth herself, unable to keep hiding such a massive secret from the maid who stays by her side. Karina sits in stunned silence, processing the revelation while Sophia nervously hopes her friend will not discriminate against her. Dark memories flash through Sophia's mind, echoing the cruel abuse that branded her as useless and less than a servant. The tense silence is abruptly shattered when Karina bursts into a fit of uncontrollable laughter. A beaming Karina admits that lacking magic perfectly explains why Sophia was never afraid of Lord Gilbert's aura and why she was relegated to cleaning old tools. Staring warmly at her anxious friend, Karina softly notes that Sophia's earnest confession proves she is someone who never lies. Overcome with immense relief, a tearful Sophia sincerely thanks a winking Karina for her total acceptance. Karina playfully scolds her for worrying too much, insisting she would never dislike her over something so trivial. Puffing out her chest with pride, the loyal maid vows that Sophia can always rely on her whenever trouble arises. Their heartwarming tea time is suddenly cut short by a loud commotion outside, prompting a curious Karina to stand up and investigate the unexpected noise. Bursting through the door in a sheer panic, Karina urgently instructs a bewildered Sophia to change her clothes immediately. The sudden commotion brings shocking news that the master and his wife have unexpectedly arrived at the estate. Steeling her nerves to handle the unannounced visit properly, she steps forward and formally introduces herself as Sophia Lanish. Looking deeply moved, Sophia warmly welcomes the elegant couple and sincerely thanks them for taking care of her. Leaning in with intense curiosity, the imposing madam closely inspects the girl, confirming if she is indeed the rumored Sophia. Bursting into joyful laughter, the ecstatic madam crushes a bewildered Sophia in a tight hug and praises Gilbert for finally finding such a cute girl. Apologizing for the surprise visit, the radiant mother explains she rushed over immediately after hearing Gilbert actually wanted to marry. Grabbing Sophia's hands with sparkling eyes, the eager madam begs to hear all the details while a completely overwhelmed Sophia stammers helplessly. Laughing brightly, the cheerful mother drags a panicked Sophia toward the parlor, deciding they have plenty of time to chat before Gilbert returns to scold them. The perceptive madam reveals that Gilbert fiercely guards his favorite things, confirming he carries Sophia's handmade handkerchief with him everywhere. Bracing herself for a harsh interrogation, Sophia is pleasantly surprised when the conversation naturally shifts into a warm discussion about how she and Gilbert first met. Gazing softly at the kind woman, Sophia feels a deep wave of relief wash over her. Even after Sophia honestly confesses her complete lack of magical power, the delighted parents brush it off entirely, simply thrilled that Gilbert found love. The warm conversation is abruptly shattered when a stern voice violently demands to know what they are doing to Sophia. Startled by the sudden intrusion, Sophia and the madam turn around to find a breathless Lord Gilbert standing in the doorway. Sweating nervously, Gilbert begs his mother to stop tormenting Sophia, explaining he rushed back the exact moment he heard of their unexpected arrival. Sipping her tea with a feigned innocent smile, the sly mother smoothly insists she was merely complimenting the wonderful girl he loves. Gilbert sighs in utter exasperation at his mother's antics, while Sophia softly thanks him for rushing to her side. Crossing his arms in pure frustration, the fierce knight scolds his mother for showing up completely unannounced yet again. Refusing to back down, the fiery mother snaps back that he should be incredibly grateful she rushed over to arrange their engagement immediately. Stunned by the sudden mention of an official union, a completely bewildered Sophia freezes in sheer shock. Smiling warmly, the mother explains she loaded up a carriage full of gifts right after receiving Gilbert's letter about making an official oath document. A deeply flustered Sophia realizes the cunning butler Hans secretly sent her measurements ahead of time to prepare for this exact moment. Eagerly brushing formal titles aside, the delighted madam begs Sophia to call her mother-in-law because she always wanted a cute daughter. Gently grasping Sophia's trembling hands, the glowing mother affectionately welcomes the sweet girl into their noble family. Blushing furiously under the warm affection, Sophia stares in sheer awe as the radiant woman beams with overwhelming joy. Gazing at the protective knight who rushed back in his disheveled uniform just for her, Sophia silently admires his incredibly wonderful parents. Tenderly touching her flushed cheek, Gilbert softly reassures her that his parents mean well but thoughtfully notes how exhausted she must be. Their quiet, intimate moment is suddenly interrupted by a polite knock echoing softly at the parlor door. Startling away from Gilbert's gentle touch, a deeply blushing Sophia listens as the servant officially announces a grand family dinner for the four of them. Sophia stares in utter shock at a massive pile of gifts sent by Lord Gilbert's parents, stammering that she cannot possibly accept so many clothes and accessories. Hans the butler and Lord Gilbert smoothly insist the wardrobe upgrade is necessary, noting that a single trunk of luggage gives the dangerous impression she might run away. Gently patting her head, Gilbert apologizes for not taking her shopping himself and warmly instructs the flustered girl to go get changed. Realizing it would be terribly rude to refuse, Sophia returns to the room wearing a stunning new dress, leaving everyone in absolute awe. Shyly admiring the delicate lace and soft fabric, Sophia softly expresses her deep gratitude for the vibrant peach gown. Overcome with nervous energy, she anxiously asks Gilbert if the bright color suits her, fearing his parents expected a much cuter young lady. Gilbert simply stares at her in silent, captivated admiration before smoothly deflecting to ask how his mother's choice turned out. His mother playfully scolds him for not complimenting his fiancée directly, while a mesmerized Gilbert mutters that he should have had Sophia wear the color much sooner. Locking his intense gaze onto hers, Gilbert declares the dress suits her perfectly and likens her beauty to a flower in full bloom. His straightforward, gentle words instantly melt away her deep-seated anxieties, leaving a fiercely blushing Sophia to stammer her thanks. Gilbert's parents chuckle at the incredibly adorable display, gently teasing the blushing girl while reminding their son to restrain his obvious affection. An embarrassed Sophia frantically apologizes, but Gilbert shoots his parents a sulky glare, prompting them to laughingly declare she is entirely blameless. Gilbert's mother smiles warmly, tenderly noting that Sophia looks much cuter when she drops her guard and smiles like an innocent child. Locking eyes with her future daughter-in-law, the elegant woman sincerely urges Sophia to keep that beautiful smile on her face forever. A quiet, overwhelming realization washes over Sophia as she absorbs the genuine affection radiating from the older couple. She feels completely embraced by the incredibly kind and warm people who raised the man she desperately loves. A silent, deeply emotional beat passes between Sophia and Gilbert as the weight of this welcoming new family settles over their hearts. The sense gracefully shifts to the formal engagement dinner, capturing the peaceful joy of sharing a meal with Lord Gilbert and his parents. As the evening winds down, a respectful Gilbert turns to his father and mother to sincerely thank them for the wonderful day. Standing tall before his parents, Gilbert formally confirms that neither he nor Lady Sophia harbors any regrets about their impending union. Gilbert gently reaches out to take Sophia's hand, his beloved, steady voice instantly wiping away any lingering hesitation in her soul. Taking a deep breath, Sophia bravely vows to stand by Lord Gilbert's side, thanking his parents for bearing witness to their engagement and accepting her with open arms. Looking back on her past, Sophia admits her only regret regarding the abusive Lanish family is that she could only visit her true parents' graves once before discarding her old name. Stepping into a brilliant future with Gilbert, she silently hopes her deceased parents will finally find peace knowing their daughter has grasped true happiness. Gilbert's beaming father officially congratulates them on the engagement, handing over the formal vows as Gilbert fiercely promises to make Sophia happy. Gripping the sacred scroll tightly against her chest, Sophia silently swears that this time, her engagement will absolutely never be broken off. Clinging to the vows, an emotional Sophia formally pledges to do her very best to live up to the grand expectations of the Forster family. Gilbert's mother steps forward with a gentle, reassuring smile, declaring that their only expectation is for her to endlessly love Gilbert and stay firmly by his side. Tears prick Sophia's eyes as she fiercely nods her agreement, her heart swelling with an undeniable surge of absolute confidence. Looking toward the future with unwavering resolve, Sophia silently vows to pour her entire soul into loving Lord Gilbert. Clutching a rolled parchment, Sophia smiles with pure warmth, swearing she will surely always love him very much. A gentle hand strokes her hair, warmly praising the tenderness of her heartfelt emotions just like that. Embracing her mother tightly, Sophia radiates gratitude as she warmly thanks her for everything. Shifting to a tense meeting room, Gilbert formally thanks the attendees for realizing the joint investigation between the Special Forces and Second Squad as requested of His Highness. The pivotal first meeting commences, uniting Kevin, Tobias, and Gilbert from the Second Squad with 4 Special Forces members led by acting Captain Fecht. Fecht subtly needles Gilbert by invoking his noble title, purposefully teasing the vice-captain's known dislike of bringing noble rank into work duties. Adjusting his glasses, Fecht reveals they suspect illegal goods are being produced in Baron Lanish's territory and have already infiltrated investigators into the area. Gilbert confirms his own suspicions, declaring he personally witnessed scenes of illegal goods production stemming from the Baron's magical power. Despite their strong leads, the combined forces admit they still haven't been able to identify the exact location of the production base. Doubt fills the room as someone questions why the Marquis wishes for a joint investigation, claiming the Second Squad has no business getting involved. Glaring sharply, Fecht warns Gilbert not to interfere if his motivation is merely a frivolous reason involving his lover's relative. Unfazed, Gilbert counters that Baron Lanish is suspected in another case, making it far more efficient to proceed with both simultaneously. Intrigued by this sudden revelation, Fecht leans in and demands to know what exactly that suspicion entails. Gilbert hesitates internally, picturing Sophia's fragile and adorable deep green eyes. Terrified of clouding those bright eyes over with dark truths, Gilbert trails off in conflicted silence. Back at the estate, a beautifully dressed Sophia looks up in mild surprise, asking for clarification about a sudden favor. An older woman explains that Elvin wrote an urgent letter to Gilbert containing confidential matters, refusing to entrust it to anyone else. Remembering past trips with her mother-in-law, Sophia feels a flutter of anxiety about having to go alone from the gate onward today. Gripping the sealed envelope tightly against her chest, she wonders if she is truly the right person for this critical task. The immense weight of delivering such an important letter makes her second-guess if it is really okay for her to be the one entrusted with it. Sensing her deep hesitation, the woman gently grips Sophia's arms, assuring her that she can entrust it precisely because it is her. Encouraged by the promise that Gilbert will surely be surprised when she shows up, Sophia resolves her doubts and accepts the mission. Arriving at the sprawling estate grounds, Sophia wanders aimlessly, totally bewildered about where to go next in this massive place. She marvels at the overwhelming scale of the royal castle, observing that it contains all sorts of buildings and facilities. Despite asking a knight near the castle gate for directions and walking exactly the way he told her, she finds herself completely lost. Frustration mounts as she scans the massive courtyard, realizing she cannot even find a proper-looking building, let alone a knight in uniform. Just as she decides she should go back and ask the knight at the gate again, a sudden voice calls out to her from behind. Whirling around with her parasol, she locks eyes with a red-haired knight who steps forward to ask if something is wrong. Before he can help further, another knight barks at Tobias for skipping training, forcing the young man to hastily apologize and promise to join right away. Quickly pointing down a grand corridor, Tobias explains that the guardroom is further in, leaving Sophia deeply grateful for his unexpected kindness. Staring in awe, a group of knights surrounds Sophia as one exclaims how super cute she is and asks what she is doing in a place like this. Overwhelmed by the sudden attention, Sophia stammers in confusion while the men excitedly bombard her with questions about her name and origin. Spotting the commotion, Kevin approaches the group, noting that the cute girl must be completely lost since she came in through the side entrance. Recognizing her instantly, a shocked Kevin stutters as the other knights demand he introduce them to the mysterious girl. Cornered by his eager comrades, Kevin nervously prepares to drop a bombshell about her true identity. Stepping forward protectively, Kevin loudly declares that she is the beloved fiancée of Gilbert Forster, sending a massive shockwave through the squad. Panicking instantly, the terrified knights bow deeply and beg her not to report their disrespectful behavior to the vice-captain. Surprised by their sudden subservience, Sophia stands frozen as she tries to process the dramatic shift in their demeanor. Breaking the tension with a bright smile, Kevin playfully asks why the vice captain's precious kitty is wandering around such a dangerous place. Meanwhile, inside a tense meeting room, Gilbert listens grimly as his colleagues report their lack of progress investigating the capital's merchants and nobles. Assessing the stalled case, a squad member suggests they have no choice but to head directly to Baron Lanish's domain to question the servants about the unpreserved evidence. Before Gilbert can respond, a sudden commotion outside the door breaks his concentration, making him fear the special task force is trying to take Sophia away. Throwing the door open, Gilbert is stunned to find Sophia standing safely in the hallway alongside Kevin. Clutching a wax-sealed envelope, Sophia explains she was sent on a crucial errand by his father while Gilbert demands to know why she is there. Reassuring him, Sophia explains that her mother accompanied her to the gate before heading to see the Queen, prompting Gilbert to ask if she navigated the rest of the way alone. Breathing a visible sigh of relief, Gilbert softly praises the fact that she was not entirely by herself. Shifting his sharp gaze to his subordinate, Gilbert demands to know exactly what Kevin is doing there with his fiancée. Standing at attention, Kevin explains how he dispersed a massive crowd to rescue Sophia and bring her safely to the vice captain. Acknowledging the rescue, Gilbert mutters in frustration about her being surrounded while Sophia quietly confirms Kevin's story. Glaring to the side, Gilbert silently curses his mother for tossing his increasingly beautiful fiancée into a place full of men. Analyzing the situation, Gilbert realizes his father could have spoken to him at home, meaning this specific letter must hold unprecedented importance regarding the Lanish suspicions. Gripping the envelope, Gilbert's expression darkens as he concludes this urgent delivery must mean something critical. Snapping into command mode, Gilbert orders Kevin to prepare the reception room and asks Sophia if she is all right waiting for a moment. Gripping her woven basket, Sophia looks up with vulnerable eyes and begs Gilbert not to leave her alone. Softening his intense gaze, Gilbert touches his chin and gently promises to stay by her side. Relocating to the reception room with the others, Gilbert notes that his father's vast network as the former Marquis is actively gathering intelligence in the capital. Breaking the tactical silence, Fecht questions why Gilbert is hiding details that directly concern his fiancée's barony, prompting Sophia to step forward. Startled by her sudden intervention, Gilbert's eyes widen as he turns his head sharply. Clutching her hands to her chest, Sophia looks at him with desperate, pleading eyes and asks exactly what happened in the Lanish barony. Trembling with unshed tears, Sophia reminds Gilbert of his promise not to hide anything about the beloved domain her parents once ruled. Desperately pleading with her beloved, Sophia begs Lord Gilbert to involve her in this dangerous matter. Staring at her fragile and magicless frame, Gilbert marvels at the profound inner strength radiating from the slender girl. Torn by his fierce desire to protect her, Gilbert admits he dreads exposing her unclouded eyes to any more suffering. Gently caressing her hand, he confesses his overwhelming worry and insists that feelings must be spoken aloud to be truly understood. He acknowledges her concern for her family's domain but firmly states he would feel much safer if she remained safely at home. Yielding to her unwavering resolve, Gilbert finally agrees to take her to the Lanish barony and promises to reveal everything. Clenching his fist, he fiercely questions if he is making the right choice before cementing his decision. Vowing to keep her green eyes shining, Gilbert realizes that true protection means fighting alongside her rather than simply hiding her away. The tender moment abruptly shatters as a flustered subordinate awkwardly interrupts their intimate conversation. The intruding knight mentally groans, clearly overwhelmed by the painfully sweet atmosphere radiating from the couple. Sophia nervously reads a shocking letter revealing the dark rumors her father gathered regarding the Lanish domain's illegal goods. Her eyes widen in horror as she discovers a terrifying string of disappearances targeting teenage boys in recent years. Remembering the gentle smiles of the impoverished locals, Sophia shudders at the thought of such gruesome crimes plaguing her quiet homeland. Noticing her sudden distress, Gilbert immediately steps closer and anxiously asks if she is all right. Gripping the letter tightly, a determined Sophia pleads with Lord Gilbert to reveal the absolute truth. Gilbert gravely confirms that her parents supposedly perished in a tragic carriage accident. A sickening realization washes over Sophia as she connects the illegal drug ring to her parents' sudden death. Lowering his gaze, Gilbert softly apologizes while confirming the grim timeline from 5 years ago. Crushed by the weight of the past, Sophia admits she locked her grief away and forced herself to accept the tragedy as a mere accident. Trembling under the crushing revelation, she desperately begs for forgiveness as her emotional walls begin to crumble. Tears well in her eyes as she realizes she would never have known the truth if she hadn't bravely chosen to investigate. A heartbroken Gilbert softly calls her name, his intense gaze entirely focused on her silent suffering. Suddenly, a sharp voice cuts through the tension as a new figure aggressively accuses the Marquis of conducting an unauthorized interrogation. A smug investigator with glasses shatters the silence, declaring the rogue investigation entirely unacceptable. The bespectacled Lord Fecht mocks the gray-uniformed knights, sneering that questioning a fiancé in secret is nothing to admire. Pushing up his glasses with a menacing glint, the investigator narrows his eyes at the cornered couple. Locking his cold gaze onto the trembling girl, he officially demands to speak with Lady Sophia Lanish. He ruthlessly points out that anyone living in the Baron's residence must surely know something about the criminal incidents. Stepping protectively in front of his fiancée, a furious Gilbert coldly snaps that Lord Fecht is making baseless assumptions. Radiating absolute authority, the Black Knight glares down the investigator and demands to know if his deadly warning was not clear enough. Sophia silently realizes that the terrified officials are completely unaware of Lord Gilbert's inability to read her specific mind, even though they deeply fear his magical telepathy. She softly reflects that while ordinary people might be terrified of the imposing knight's touch, being near him actually brings her a strange sense of comfort. A furious official violently accuses the knight of using cheap sophistry to shield the girl, completely outraged by his protective words. Refusing to back down, the brave maid firmly defends the knight's honor and declares that Lord Gilbert is absolutely not the kind of person to deceive others. The bespectacled official stares down in sheer disbelief, completely taken aback by the gentle girl's sudden and fierce defiance. He softly mutters Lady Sophia's name as she stands tall and resolute in the face of his intense, calculating scrutiny. Maintaining her unyielding stance, Sophia boldly commands the intrusive investigators to withdraw from the premises immediately. She firmly asserts that they have absolutely nothing to hide, demanding they discuss the matter properly at an official meeting later. A relieved Gilbert gently places his large hand on her shoulder, formally dismissing the officials and offering to personally escort them to their carriage. Later that evening, under the glow of a bright moon, a freshly bathed Sophia steels her resolve and prepares for her nightly routine. Hesitating at his door, Sophia realizes she lacks the confidence to face Gilbert after the afternoon's intense confrontation, overwhelmed by the daunting tasks ahead. Seeking a desperate source of courage, she gently clutches her late mother's treasured necklace tightly in her trembling hands. Looking down at the precious keepsake she saved from being sold, a horrified realization suddenly strikes her that the jewelry might actually become critical evidence for the ongoing investigation. Startled by the sudden creak of a door, a completely flustered Sophia stammers as Gilbert unexpectedly steps out into the quiet hallway. Catching her completely off guard, the imposing knight gazes down softly and asks if she was just about to come visit his room. Staring into his deep eyes, a massive wave of tangled emotions violently rises to the surface of her chest, desperately pleading for his undivided attention. As he gently touches her head, her overwhelming anxiety instantly washes away, prompting her to shyly ask why he is out in the hallway so late. Locking his intense gaze with hers, the fierce knight softly confesses that he specifically came out just to see her. Panicking internally as he smoothly asks to enter her room for the very first time, a deeply flustered Sophia frantically wonders how to handle the unprecedented situation. Blushing furiously, the sweet maid shyly grants him permission to enter, completely overwhelmed by the simple, warm joy of his rare request. Sitting together in the quiet room, Gilbert gently stops her from apologizing for the afternoon's confrontation, firmly insisting that the fault lies entirely with him. Refusing to let him take the blame, an anxious Sophia tightly grips her dress and declares she urgently needs to share vital information with the special forces. Noticing his sudden, heavy silence, a deeply concerned Sophia nervously calls out to the towering, battle-hardened knight. Gilbert looks away with a surprisingly troubled expression, leaving Sophia completely bewildered by his highly unusual display of raw distress. Leaning in with intense seriousness, Gilbert strictly warns the frightened maid to be extremely careful around those dangerous investigators. Tenderly stroking her hair, he firmly advises her to avoid getting involved with either the Special Forces or the 2nd Division for her own absolute safety. A wave of deep confusion washes over Sophia as she bitterly questions why she must avoid the very knights sworn to protect the kingdom's innocent people. Suddenly remembering the heavy secret resting in her hands, her eyes widen in a sudden, brilliant flash of profound realization. Gathering every ounce of her courage, Sophia boldly holds out a small, mysterious black box directly toward the imposing marquis. Opening the delicate case, she reveals her late mother's treasured necklace and tragically confesses that her mother was wearing it the very moment she died. Clutching the small box, Sophia reveals that this is the only keepsake she has left, a treasure she would secretly look at to comfort her heart when she was about to give up. Sitting closely on the sofa, she extends the box toward Gilbert, earnestly pleading with him to let her entrust it to him. A flashback shows a younger, destitute Sophia clutching the item in a stripped room, noting it was her only treasure left in a house where her parents' precious relics and household goods were being sold off. Returning to the present, she firmly tells Gilbert that if she is to entrust it to anyone, it should definitely be him. Taken aback by her profound trust, Gilbert looks at her gently and asks if she is truly okay with that decision. Staring into his deep blue eyes, Sophia feels as though they can see straight through her still weak heart. Reminding him of his past promise, she notes that he said he would take her to his domain, which is precisely why she wants him to have it. Resolving her inner weakness, Sophia declares that even if it's just bravado, she desperately wants to become someone worthy of that promise. She reinforces her plea, insisting that she is speaking with words that come directly from her heart. A tense, silent moment passes as Gilbert absorbs the sheer weight of her heartfelt confession. Reaching out, Gilbert gently takes the small black box from her hands, softly thanking her for her trust. He solemnly promises to take good care of it, while Sophia marvels that back at the Lanish Baron's house, she never could have imagined someone would cherish what she cherishes. As their hands touch during the exchange, she silently notes how incredibly warm his touch feels. Later, in the investigation room, Fecht reveals they received the victim's keepsake yesterday, a necklace with a valuable stone that is currently their only piece of evidence. Recognizing the item, Gilbert and the squad gasp as Fecht explains they must examine it carefully since the victim was wearing it when the incident occurred. Examining the intricate flower-shaped pendant, the squad realizes with shock that it is actually a magic device containing a complex circuit. Gilbert realizes the tragic truth. Precisely because Sophia had it, nobody noticed it was a magic tool for 5 whole years, whereas normally someone would have spotted it immediately. Analyzing the design, one of the knights notes that magic device circuits are arranged differently depending on their function, leaving them unsure of its purpose or how to activate it. They conclude that if they can decipher the circuit, they can figure out how to use it, provided it isn't too complex to understand. Stepping up to the task, Kevin grabs a pen and paper, stating he was pretty good at decoding in school and offers to help decipher it as is. After successfully decoding it, Gilbert announces he is activating it, while internally feeling glad for the first time that Sophia possesses no magic power. He realizes with dread that if she had accidentally activated this device on her own, she would have surely been hurt badly. Gilbert channels his magic into the pendant, causing it to glow brilliantly as it hovers above his outstretched hand. The device suddenly projects a holographic light, revealing itself to be a recording device that captures everything from the perspective of the necklace. The projection shows a crowded room where people are dancing, leading the squad to deduce it is footage of a ball from several years ago based on the outdated dress styles and small venue size. The point of view shifts as the wearer opens a door, indicating that they have now gone out into the corridor and are entering another room. Gilbert and the knights stare in stunned silence as the recording reveals something deeply shocking. The projected image clearly shows the faces of the current Baron and Baroness Lanish standing in the dimly lit room. The footage suddenly turns chaotic as the Baron lunges forward aggressively, shouting something unintelligible, while the squad watches the dangerous situation unfold. The perspective jerks violently as the Baron grabs the wearer, capturing the terrifying moment of the assault in stark detail. An enraged knight fiercely calls out the former Baron Lanish, disgusted that the man dared to raise his hand against a woman. Watching from afar, the observers note the disgraced couple hurriedly piling into a carriage to flee the room. Scanning the area, the team quickly realizes something is amiss when they notice the coachman is completely missing from his post. Peering through the carriage window, the investigators observe the tense couple whispering intensely to each other inside the moving cabin. Utter terror erupts as the runaway carriage violently careens straight off a jagged cliff. The doomed carriage plummets through the thick canopy, hurtling downward in a catastrophic freefall. Gilbert and his loyal knights watch the grim magical projection in absolute, stunned silence. A chilling realization hangs heavy in the air as they note the complete and unnatural absence of sound during the entire recorded crash. Deducing the mechanics of the magical recording, the team realizes the necklace was part of a set and the missing earrings likely captured the audio. Desperate to hear the muffled argument, the knights urgently question the whereabouts of the remaining jewelry pieces and the missing coachman. Gilbert reveals that Sophia bravely smuggled this crucial recording device from a display of mementos during the late Baron and Baroness's funeral. Though she initially assumed her cruel relatives pawned the matching jewelry, she later discovered all the valuable items had mysteriously vanished. Inspecting the expensive circuitry, the knights conclude the greedy Baron would never discard such a valuable piece of permanent evidence. Gilbert's eyes narrow with sharp calculation as he pieces together the final, undeniable truth of the missing audio. Radiating cold determination, the Black Knight definitively declares that the rest of the magical set must still be hidden somewhere. Meanwhile, a well-dressed Albert stands outside a sprawling, moonlit estate with a heavy heart. The heartbroken nobleman whispers Bianca's name into the night, his mind completely consumed by thoughts of his missing fiancée. Gazing up at Baron Lanish's grand royal capital estate, Albert steels himself after a long period of absence. Albert's stern father abruptly interrupts his thoughts, steering the conversation toward a much more pressing matter. Delivering a crushing blow, the older man bluntly declares his firm intention to annul Albert's engagement to Lady Bianca. Utterly blindsided by the sudden decree, a panicked Albert frantically demands to know what his father is talking about. His father coldly explains that if the mind-reading Marquis Forster publicly acted against the Lanish family, they must be guilty of something truly terrible. Desperately defending his beloved, Albert blames Sophia's cruelty and insists Bianca has absolutely nothing to do with the Baron's dark crimes. A flashback reveals a manipulative Bianca holding a dress, deceitfully claiming Sophia ruthlessly threw away Albert's lovely gifts. Feigning sweet innocence, Bianca shyly asks if she can keep the discarded dress for herself. The cunning girl relentlessly flatters Albert's charm, mocking Sophia as a fool for ignoring his heartfelt letters. Showering him with poisonous praise, Bianca claims she is the only one who truly appreciates his special gifts. A deeply intimate memory washes over Albert as he recalls the overwhelming, sinful lust he felt while holding her. Refusing to believe the accusations against his sweet Bianca, Albert fiercely remembers how happily she accepted his love with a tender kiss. Blinded by devotion, Albert passionately argues that judging Bianca's true nature over a single public mistake is completely narrow-minded. Staring coldly at his son, the stern patriarch warns Albert that he is prepared to repeat his ultimate decree. Declaring that Albert is not the only heir to the house, his furious father completely shatters him by announcing the immediate annulment of his engagement to Bianca. The patriarch brutally adds that raising his 10-year-old brother as the new heir would be far easier than re-educating a foolish son, demanding Albert sever all ties with the Lanish house. The tense scene shifts as a tearful Bianca desperately rushes forward, crying out in sheer relief that Albert finally came for her. Pulling the sobbing girl into a tight embrace, a deeply apologetic Albert reveals he couldn't see her sooner and asks how she managed to get home from the royal ball. Shocked by her admission, Albert gasps as Bianca innocently explains that a complete stranger gave her a carriage ride home after she was left stranded. Furious at her recklessness, Albert sharply scolds the beautiful woman for blindly entering a stranger's carriage, despite his relief that she made it back safely. Flashing a perfectly innocent gaze, the manipulative noblewoman softly asks if he would have preferred her to walk the entire grueling distance instead. Flustered by her wide-eyed defense, Albert hastily backtracks and insists he was simply terrified for her safety. Smoothly changing the subject, Bianca brightly latches onto his arm, completely thrilled to hear how deeply he worried about her. As Bianca cheerfully drags him along for a long chat, a sweating Albert realizes his stern warnings completely failed to reach her. Settling into the parlor, Albert brings up the news of Sophia's formal engagement to Lord Forster, awkwardly claiming he is glad as long as she is happy. Seizing the narrative, Bianca feigns sorrow, claiming she only tried to help her troubled cousin but was callously rejected by a changed Sophia. Tired of the bitter drama, Albert cuts off her fabricated story, asking her to please stop bringing up the uncomfortable incident from the ball. Instantly playing the victim, Bianca dramatically clutches her chest and claims she simply cannot forgive the cruel words Sophia spat at her. A sudden flash of clarity strikes Albert, as he violently remembers that the only person screaming horrible things at the ball was Bianca herself. Staring at the seemingly familiar woman before him, Albert agrees to drop the subject, completely plagued by a creeping sense of alienation. Recalling the breathtaking, resolute Sophia he saw at the ball, a deeply unsettled Albert questions if she is truly the kind of monster Bianca paints her out to be. Lost in his swirling doubts, Albert silently wonders how the oblivious Bianca will react when she finally learns their engagement has been officially destroyed. The scene abruptly cuts to a snowy trail as Sophia nervously cries out Lord Gilbert's name while struggling to balance her foot in a stirrup. Riding together on a powerful steed, Sophia anxiously asks how long their journey to the Lanish barony will take, learning it requires 2 grueling days on horseback. The investigating knights specifically chose horses over a carriage to avoid drawing unwanted attention in the treacherous, snow-covered mountains. Gilbert calmly informs the squad that they must rest every few hours to prevent the horses from collapsing under the continuous strain. Clutching the reins nervously, a tense Sophia quietly nods her understanding as they brave the freezing journey ahead. Leaning back against Gilbert's broad chest, the frightened maid admits she is still utterly terrified of riding despite having shared a horse with him once before. Gently urging her to lift her head, the stoic knight reassures her that riding isn't so terrible because it beautifully broadens a person's world. Encouraged by Gilbert and the cheerful knights riding alongside them, a hesitant Sophia finally forces herself to look forward instead of down. Her fearful gasps instantly transform into breathless awe as her widened eyes take in the breathtaking scenery unfolding before her. Gilbert proudly explains that the lush, open plains stretching toward the next town are meticulously managed by the royal castle. Bathed in the crisp winter light, Sophia gazes in absolute wonder at the endless, dazzling expanse of the beautiful snowy fields. Gazing out from her carriage, Sophia realizes she never would have seen this vast landscape if she had just stayed locked inside her room. After riding across an entire fief's worth of land, the traveling group decides to rest at an inn located in a town along the way. A gentle knock interrupts the quiet as Gilbert softly asks Sophia if she has a moment to spare. Sophia earnestly thanks Gilbert for supporting her the entire time they were riding, though he insists carrying her was no problem for his mount. Revealing a playful side, Gilbert insists she must also thank Timo, explaining that it is actually the horse's name. Reaching out gently, Gilbert asks for her hand, promising that just a fleeting touch will be perfectly fine. Confusion washes over Sophia as Gilbert slides a mysterious, delicate object onto her finger. Gilbert gifts her a beautiful kyanite jewel ring he had made in a hurry, noting its deep blue color matches his eyes perfectly. Flushing with joy, Sophia admits she is not used to expensive gifts but is truly happy to receive something in his signature color. Gilbert explains the ring is actually a magic tool linked to his earring, allowing her to channel his magical power through her left hand. Anxious about draining his strength, Sophia questions if her usage will affect him, but he assures her the magic cost is absolutely nothing. With a serious gaze, Gilbert admits that whenever she uses the ring, he will inevitably be able to sense her exact location. Rather than feeling restricted, Sophia's heart warms as she realizes his tracking magic makes her feel incredibly safe. Looking up at him with unwavering trust, Sophia boldly declares that she does not mind his tracking at all. Touched by her sincere acceptance, a soft, relieved smile graces Gilbert's face. Sophia reflects deeply on the profound comfort of knowing someone is willing to freely lend her their magic. She feels completely saved from her dark past, remembering the helpless days when she was all alone and couldn't even summon a light for a drink of water. Shifting her focus to his well-being, Sophia urges a tired Gilbert to rest well tonight and prepare for tomorrow's journey. Overwhelmed by his continuous support and gifts, Sophia desperately wonders what she can possibly do to return his immense kindness. Radiating pure joy in her imagination, she envisions herself warmly thanking her beloved for everything. Breaking the quiet atmosphere, Gilbert softly whispers her name. Leaning in intimately, Gilbert bridges the gap between them until their faces are inches apart. Their lips meet in a tender, breathless exchange that leaves a light-headed Sophia sighing his name over and over. Pulling back slightly, he tenderly strokes her hair while gazing deeply into her wide, shimmering eyes. Bidding her a gentle good night, Gilbert steps out the door, leaving a heavily blushing Sophia to process her racing heart. The next morning, the disguised group rides their horses forward as they finally spot the entrance to the barony. Posing as humble traveling merchants, they effortlessly slip past the sparse border guards of the small Rhaenish barony. Seeking a place to gather information, they spot the largest building in the area and decide to investigate its first-floor tavern. Pushing the tavern doors open, the group is immediately struck by the suspicious lack of customers inside such a massive establishment. A cheerful waitress quickly approaches the supposed travelers, prompting Kevin to casually ask about the local specialty to strike up a conversation. Alma cheerfully notes the handsome traveler knows an awful lot about the local carna beans, leaving a disguised Sophia momentarily nervous. Gilbert smoothly covers their tracks by stating a traveling merchant must broaden his knowledge, playing his role perfectly. The maid confirms the beans are entirely unique to this land and completely absent from the royal capital, catching Sophia's attention. Sophia ponders this strange detail, realizing it is a massive secret she shouldn't voice too loudly. A knight enthusiastically suggests taking some beans back to sell, fully leaning into their merchant disguise as Alma chuckles. Alma cheerfully admits she was wondering what kind of group they were since there are such incredibly handsome men among them. Gilbert laughs it off while Sophia pulls her hood down tighter, desperate to avoid being recognized as the former baron's daughter and ruining the mission. The maid reveals the previous lord's plan to trade carna beans was abandoned because the new lord ruthlessly raises taxes every single year. A horrified Sophia realizes the struggling townsfolk cannot even buy food from merchants because the crushing taxes leave them with nothing. Looking at the tavern's plain soup, Sophia deduces the horrifying truth that the commoners' daily meals must be even worse. Noticing their grim expressions, Alma warmly apologizes for shocking the travelers with such a depressing tale. The maid warns that life has grown incredibly harsh, bringing kidnappers and rowdy men while the local vigilantes remain entirely useless. Because of these dire and dangerous conditions, the population of the land continuously dwindles. Sophia grips her cloak, realizing the dark rumors in her father-in-law's letters about the Rhaenish barony were horrifyingly accurate. She silently surveys the plain soup, sparse customers, and worn buildings, absorbing the absolute misery surrounding her. The grim reality completely shatters her cherished memories of the once peaceful and gentle Rhaenish barony. Alma kindly advises the pretty young lady to be careful, warning that the area becomes incredibly dangerous at night. A sudden thought crosses the maid's mind, making her wonder aloud how the previous lord's daughter Sophia is doing nowadays. Alma fondly recalls the cute girl who completely disappeared the moment the cruel current lord took power. Staring out the window, the maid sincerely hopes the new lord isn't mistreating the poor girl. Overwhelmed by the townsfolk's enduring care for her despite their own struggles, a tearful Sophia quickly excuses herself from the table. Gilbert immediately follows her outside to ask if she is all right, but a weeping Sophia simply apologizes for her sudden tears. Standing beside the stoic knight, she feels his quiet presence comforting her utterly powerless self. The knights emerge to take their leave, advising Lord Gilbert that it would be best for Sophia to depart the area entirely. Recognizing she would only hinder their dangerous work, a resolute Sophia promises she will be perfectly fine staying behind. Gilbert presses a tender kiss to her hand, granting her permission to explore during the daylight but firmly forbidding her from leaving the town. The next morning, Alma cheerfully greets Sophia as she steps out of her room into the sunlight. Introducing herself properly, Alma asks for her name, prompting Sophia to quickly use her prepared alias Fee. Noticing her solitary state, Alma asks where the three handsome men went, and Fee confirms she is staying behind for the day. Alma suggests visiting the local church for souvenirs, noting the daytime market is a relatively safe place for a pleasant stroll. Reflecting on her dark past at the Baron's estate, Sophia remembers how Bianca used to donate her secretly crafted embroidered trinkets to the local church bazaar. Pushing open the heavy wooden doors, a cloaked Sophia steps out of the freezing winter cold and into the warm, welcoming halls of the church. Two cheerful young orphans immediately approach the unexpected visitor, brightly asking if the pretty lady has come to shop or to pray. Greeting the sweet children warmly, Sophia kneels before the beautiful stained glass altar and earnestly prays for Lord Gilbert's safe return from his dangerous mission. Bowing her head in the quiet sanctuary, she desperately wishes for the townsfolk's happiness while secretly feeling pathetic that prayer is her only real power. Finishing her solemn prayers, Sophia turns back to the eager boy who enthusiastically offers a small selection of baked sweets and handmade handkerchiefs. Scanning the humble bazaar table, her eyes widen in absolute shock as she spots a very familiar bird and flower embroidered pattern. Staring intently at the delicate stitching, Sophia instantly recognizes the exact design she used to secretly craft for Lady Bianca. The cheerful orphans explain that they loved the Lord's child's donations so much that they started imitating the lovely patterns, noting that Bianca hasn't visited lately. A profound wave of realization washes over Sophia as she remembers pouring her raw grief into those embroideries just to survive her darkest days. A gentle, radiant smile finally breaks across her face as she realizes her silent cries for comfort actually brought genuine joy to the townspeople. Purchasing 4 baked sweets from the delighted children, Sophia feels a warm tickle in her chest, genuinely thrilled that her secret art inspired them. Politely declining any further items, Sophia warmly thanks the beaming orphans and expresses how much she truly enjoyed their sweet company. Stepping back into the falling snow, Sophia reflects that despite losing her parents, she was far luckier than these innocent children who have absolutely nothing. Firmly resolving to help the orphans in any way she can, the gentle maid turns back toward the church and softly promises to visit them again. The scene sharply shifts to a tense meeting room where the stoic knights gather, confirming that their strategic movements are proceeding exactly as planned. Adjusting his glasses with a knowing smirk, Surfect smoothly admits he fully expected their progress to be severely delayed by the presence of a lady. Outlining their grim battle plan, the commander declares the special task force will raid the drug sites while the 3rd squad investigates the murder of the former baron. Turning his sharp gaze toward the 2nd squad, Surfect demands a direct progress report regarding the highly suspicious private lands of Baron Lanish. A grim-faced knight reports the discovery of 3 seemingly ordinary houses on the property, strongly suspecting hidden underground basements used for illicit cultivation. The tactical team strategically decides to launch their search directly from the mysterious accident site from 5 years ago, earning Feck's immediate approval. Narrowing his eyes, a sharp knight darkly suggests that the treacherous baron might be secretly gathering massive amounts of illicit labor power. Piecing the grim clues together, Gilbert realizes that since the Baron cannot legally hire workers for such a massive shadow operation, a horrifying truth dawns on the room as they realize the wicked nobles must be violently kidnapping innocent people to mass-produce the illegal goods. A terrifying, murderous aura radiates from Gilbert as he violently grips his arm, utterly disgusted that such vile crimes are infecting Sophia's precious homeland. Clenching his jaw in absolute fury, the fierce knight silently vows to shield his beloved from the agonizing reality and protect her beautiful smile at all costs. Sensing the rising tension, Surfect calmly warns that if they hesitate now, the tragic number of innocent victims will only continue to multiply. Staring forward with unbreakable resolve, Gilbert firmly agrees and prepares to strike hard for a swift, brutal resolution. Bowing slightly, the imposing Marquis formally requests the Special Task Force's absolute cooperation in tearing down the corrupt Baron. With his heart fiercely burning for Sophia's sake, Gilbert silently vows to forge alliances with absolutely anyone necessary to eradicate the looming darkness. Looking slightly relieved, Gilbert notes that Sophia actually went out on her own. Reassuring her, Gilbert states that her trying to go outside is a very good thing, easing her sudden worry. He realizes with pride that she has finally become able to navigate the world on her own without him having to worry. Stunned, Sophia listens as Gilbert announces they will investigate again tomorrow and that Kevin will accompany her. Gilbert explains that having a Rhaenish family member present grants them access to many places, planning a full search of the Baron's mansion next week. With absolute seriousness, Gilbert declares that her safety has now become a top priority for the entire task force. Encouraging her growth, he assures her that listening to the town's voices and gaining these experiences will surely connect to her bright future. Gazing up with deep gratitude, Sophia warmly thanks him while he gently warns her not to overdo it. Staring out at the vast landscape, Sophia is suddenly asked if she truly loves the barony. Gilbert acknowledges that this land holds both her birth and her deepest losses, noting that not all her memories here are happy ones. A heavy silence falls as Sophia softly murmurs his name while processing the weight of her tragic past. Meeting his gaze with unwavering resolve, Sophia declares that she simply cannot bring herself to hate this place. Looking out at the night, she tells him that despite what the barony has become now, there is a truth he surely does not know. A beautiful vision of the past reveals that the barony used to be an incredibly warm, gentle, and wonderful place. Standing firm in her convictions, Sophia vows that she cannot simply forget or hate the land she once loved. Deeply moved by her enduring spirit, Gilbert urges the unchanged Sophia to continue loving her homeland forever. Gently cupping her cheek, Gilbert promises that one day he will surely see this land exactly as it exists in her beautiful memories. Tears well up in her eyes as she leans into his warm touch and softly agrees. Shifting to a tense outdoor scene, A knight points out the strange reality that the coachman somehow survived the deadly crash. Inspecting the deep, steep cliff where her parents supposedly died, they realize an early summer fall offers no leaves or snow to cushion the impact. Analyzing the deadly drop, they deduce the coachman could not have escaped unscathed, raising dark suspicions about the neighboring viscount's involvement. Surveying the terrible road, they question why anyone returning from the viscount's mansion would purposefully choose such a dangerous detour. Narrowing his eyes at the treacherous path, Gilbert firmly declares the entire accident scene completely unnatural. Back inside the lively church, a cheerful young girl instantly recognizes Sophia as the big sister from yesterday. Flustered, Sophia stammers when the children playfully ask if the handsome knight with her is her actual prince. Suddenly, an older boy rushes over and scolds the little girl for bothering the visitors. Sophia gently smiles and reassures the boy that it is perfectly fine, learning the energetic little girl's name is Mia. Introducing themselves as Dennis and Lutz, the boys agree to chat while Sophia adopts the undercover name Phi. Gathering around the rustic table, Sophia softly engages the children to quietly gather more information about the town. Bidding the others a warm goodbye, the children excitedly begin sharing their stories with the disguised investigators. Observing the church, Sophia noted that while people continuously came to pray, very few bought trinkets or sweets from the children. Looking toward the departing worshippers, the boy realized that everyone was surely struggling with their own lives. The boy smiled bravely, explaining that while shop work or carrying loads was tough, they could sometimes get day labor even as children, assuring her they would be fine. As the children cheerfully packed up their stall to prepare a meal, Sophia silently lamented that orphans in a more prosperous land would receive an education through donations rather than being forced to work. Suddenly, heavy footsteps echoed through the quiet church as a dark figure pushed past the pews toward the children. Two menacing men loomed over the group, confirming the boy's identity before one violently grabbed his head, eager to get the job done quickly. The boy cried out in pain as the stranger yanked him upward, leaving the children completely stunned and terrified. Struggling fiercely against the painful grip, the boy demanded to be released while Sophia shouted at the men to stop. Refusing to stand by, Sophia courageously threw herself between the towering man and the terrified child. The rough-looking man paused, glaring down at her and asking the little miss what exactly she thought she was doing. Although her legs trembled violently and her mind screamed in terror, she stood her ground, unable to avert her eyes from the impending threat. Shielding the trembling children behind her, Sophia boldly turned the question back on him and threatened to call the vigilantes. The rugged man simply smirked, letting out a dark chuckle at the mention of the vigilantes. Thrusting his arm forward, he aggressively demanded to know if she recognized the symbol on his sleeve. Sophia's eyes widened in horror as she caught sight of the distinct emblem. Staring blankly at the dark, geometric crest stitched into the fabric, she realized exactly who these men were. Before she could react, the man lunged forward and roughly grabbed her shoulder. She realized with sinking dread that the armband was proof they belonged to the Baron Rainish Territory's vigilante corps, meaning the very people sworn to protect them were the ones dragging Dennis away. The thug mocked her childish naivety, amused that she actually believed the vigilantes were bound to act righteously. When she desperately questioned how vigilantes could act this way, he coldly replied that they had permission from the higher-ups and took no complaints from citizens. Sophia fiercely yelled that their job was to protect the weak, prompting the man to angrily snap at the yapping brat that they were just doing their jobs. Roaring for her not to get in the way, the thug violently swung his arm toward Sophia. In a flash, Kevin materialized behind her, gently catching her shoulders and reminding her not to push herself too far even with him around. After Sophia whispered a breathless thanks, Kevin stepped forward to confront the thug, dangerously questioning if the man had really just used violence right in front of him. Drawing his weapon with cold precision, Kevin declared the thug's actions to be a crime in progress. The vigilante recoiled in pure shock, screaming in panic as the swift blade flashed before his eyes. With effortless speed, Kevin dashed through the air, neutralizing the hostile men before they could even react. The two corrupt vigilantes collapsed heavily onto the floor, completely incapacitated by the knight's swift strike. Sophia let out a shaky breath of relief as the immediate danger finally passed. Turning his calm gaze back to Sophia, Kevin softly asked if the young lady was all right. Sophia reaches out hesitantly as an unfamiliar hand extends towards her, sparking a sudden wave of apprehension. She mentally steels herself, recognizing that this hand belongs to a noble knight and is rightfully meant to pull the weak from danger. Sophia pulls the crying children close into a comforting embrace, reassuring Mia and Lutz that the terrifying ordeal is finally over. Sir Kevin steps into the room with a priest holding heavy ropes, announcing that they will secure the incapacitated attackers and move to a private room. As Kevin swiftly binds the assailants, he thanks Sophia for saving Dennis, though she humbly tries to deny her own bravery. Dennis steps forward with a grateful smile, earnestly thanking his big sister figure for rushing to their aid without a second thought. Her eyes soften with unshed tears as she humbly accepts his gratitude, gently whispering her own thanks in return. Watching Sir Kevin effortlessly haul the restrained criminals away, Sophia realizes the knight could have easily handled the situation without her intervention. Staring down at her trembling hands, she firmly decides that she does not regret mustering the courage to leap into action. Guilt briefly washes over her as she realizes the terrified children ended up worrying about her safety instead of their own. The authorities arrive to officially secure the subdued men, commanding their subordinates to take the criminals away for questioning. Lord Gilbert suddenly bursts onto the scene with a deeply concerned expression, immediately locking eyes with Sophia to ask if she is hurt. He steps closer and sincerely apologizes for his delayed arrival, acknowledging the sheer terror she must have felt during the ambush. As Gilbert extends his hand toward her, Sophia notes how remarkably different it feels from the strictly dutiful reach of a knight. His gaze softens with pure empathy as he gently points out her lingering distress, urging her to finally let go and rest easy. In a low, profoundly reassuring voice, he praises her bravery and tells her she did exceptionally well. A sudden flashback hits her as the aggressive silhouette of the vigilante violently overlaps with the traumatic memory of her abusive uncle. The dam finally breaks and she collapses against Gilbert's chest in tears, realizing the deep-seated fear she thought she had conquered was merely suppressed. Overwhelmed by his protective presence, she buries her face into his warm coat and clings to him desperately. He wraps his arms tightly around her trembling frame, fiercely reminding her that she is entirely responsible for keeping those innocent children safe. Gently stroking her back, he whispers how genuinely glad he is that she is still here with them, actively fighting to do her best. Closing his eyes in a moment of quiet relief, he deeply thanks her for surviving the harrowing ordeal. Surrounded by his absolute warmth, Sophia feels anchored by his gentle words and the undeniable sweetness of hearing him call her name. Clutching the dark fabric of his coat, she vows that at least in his presence, she will never again pretend to be artificially strong. Safely tucked away from the chaos, Sophia finally surrenders to her exhaustion and falls into a deep, peaceful sleep. Stepping outside the quiet room, a subordinate reports to the Marquis that the captured assailants have already begun confessing in broad terms. The Marquis glances thoughtfully back toward the sleeping girl, a flicker of genuine protective intrigue crossing his stoic features. His bespectacled aide pauses mid-report, openly noting that he has never seen the typically composed Marquis wear such a remarkably tender expression. Adjusting his glasses, the aide officially admits his past suspicions about the young lady but firmly declares her innocent of the recent violent incidents. Annoyed by the aide's knowing gaze, the Marquis swiftly changes the subject and commands him to keep moving forward with the investigation. Pushing up his glasses, the man states that Sophia is merely asleep from exhaustion, arguing that it is needless worry to simply pity her now since she acted bravely to protect the children and save the suffering townsfolk. Gazing down at her resting face, he declares her a worthy daughter of House Rainish who needs no pity, as treating her otherwise after she behaved befitting the Lord's bloodline would be a grave insult. The bespectacled man stands in solemn silence, his expression unreadable behind his lenses. Grasping the door handle, a man briskly demands the latest report and calmly accepts the incoming intelligence with a measured nod. Striding down the corridor, the bespectacled man reveals that the genuine vigilantes joined upon Baron Rainish's recommendation, directly receiving his instructions to abduct people and deliver them to the exact same building each time. Halting his stride, the blond man processes the grim intelligence and decisively declares that he will handle the matter himself. Meanwhile, a bound and exhausted captive sits slumped at a desk, realizing their only desperate hope is to simply track down that mysterious building's location. A gentle voice softly pierces the darkness, repeatedly calling out Sophia's name to rouse her from her deep slumber. Leaning in closely with a concerned gaze, Gilbert gently asks Sophia if she is able to wake up. Slowly blinking her groggy eyes open, Sophia gazes up and weakly breathes Lord Gilbert's name as she fully regains consciousness. Greeting her with a warm good morning, Gilbert apologizes for rushing her but urgently requests that she make her way back to the inn. Flustered and confused about when she even fell asleep, Sophia agrees as Gilbert explains that the captured men will be escorted to the capital at once, advising her to lay low and avoid going out for a while. Sophia nods in understanding as Gilbert gently pats her head, thanking her for her hard work and suggesting she go visit the local children again sometime soon. Gently stroking her hair, Gilbert internally rejoices that her smiles are becoming more frequent, wondering who could possibly not be swayed by such a radiant expression. Despite his outward warmth, he secretly admits to feeling pathetic for harboring a deep-seated fear that she might soon spread her wings. As Sophia hesitantly asks if he will accompany her next time too, Gilbert mentally finishes his melancholic thought, terrified she will fly away somewhere far beyond his reach. Blushing heavily and averting her gaze, Sophia shyly confesses that when little Mia asked who her prince was, she desperately wished she could properly say it was him. Stunned by her incredibly sweet confession, Gilbert's expression completely softens into a tender gaze as he vows to remain by her side, at least for now. Smiling gently to break the tension, Gilbert gently prompts Sophia that it is time to get moving because Timo is waiting for them outside. Deeply moved by the moment, she silently prays to never let go of this beloved warmth as he naturally pulls her close once again. Meanwhile, heavy boots hit the grass as the tactical team declares they cannot wait for a warrant, fearing the culprits might destroy critical evidence if they suspect the vigilantes are missing. Peering through the dense foliage at a large estate, the strike force decides to seize the illicit production site immediately. Standing resolutely before a heavy wooden door, the bespectacled man adjusts his glasses and coldly asks his squad if the breach plan is agreeable. He stares intently at the barricade, fully aware of the dark secrets that lie waiting just beyond that door. Without wasting another second, he barks the explosive command for the team to move in. Inside the dimly lit facility, cruel overseers aggressively shout at the exhausted workers, barking at them to hurry up and stop dawdling. Panting heavily, a bruised and exhausted boy pushes a heavy cart, desperately trying to remember exactly how many days have passed since he was brought here. Forced into grueling farm work within a dark underground without ever seeing the sunlight, the broken boy tearfully wishes he could just go home and see his family. Suddenly, a tall, imposing knight places a firm but reassuring hand on the startled boy's shoulder. Apologizing softly for the sudden action, the knight swiftly incapacitates the rescued boy, gently telling him to sleep for a bit as he collapses into a safe, temporary unconsciousness. A thug screams out for his vice-captain while another desperately swings a sword at the blonde knight's unguarded back. The hostile thug demands to know the knight's identity, warning him that they are trespassing on the baron's private land, to which the knight calmly replies that he already knew. Standing tall amidst the chaos, the knight introduces himself as Gilbert Forster, vice-captain of the Royal Guard's second squad. The thug furiously accuses him of lying about being the head of the Forster Marquis family, but Gilbert merely glares back and asks if he has a problem with that. Unfazed by the oncoming attack, Gilbert seamlessly channels powerful magic into his sword. With a blinding flash, Gilbert easily shatters the thug's weapon and strikes him down, coldly suggesting he take better care of his blade. The defeated man groans in agonizing pain as Gilbert harshly commands him to shut up. The sheer force of Gilbert's sweeping strike sends the corrupt vigilante flying backward through the air. Turning his back on the downed men, Gilbert announces he has arranged a carriage so they can slowly hear the full story later. In a distant memory, a bespectacled man observes Gilbert from afar, noting the rumors that the noble can read other people's thoughts. The man stews in bitter envy, resenting Gilbert for being born with both a title and the ability to use every attribute of magical talent right from the start. Narrowing his eyes with deep-seated contempt, he bluntly declares how much he dislikes the gifted prodigy. The narrative shifts to the grand estate of a count's household, home to 4 young sons. While the eldest was fit to inherit, the second skilled in politics, and the third gifted in magic, the 4th son felt completely overshadowed by his capable older brothers. Standing quietly in the background, the bespectacled 4th son was widely dismissed as having absolutely no talent at all. Glaring through his glasses with fierce determination, he silently vowed that this pathetic situation could not go on. Refusing to be pitted or seen as mediocre compared to his brothers, he locked himself away and studied harder than anyone else. He relentlessly swung his practiced sword in solitude, determined to train harder than anyone just so he could finally be recognized. His grueling efforts paid off when an official congratulated him on passing the entrance exam for the Special Operations Unit, the Sovereign's crown jewel. He listened to the hollow praise of his peers, finally being acknowledged as the capable younger brother they expected him to be. Just as he relished seizing his elite seat through pure effort, he overheard that Gilbert Forster effortlessly passed the Royal Guards exam at the absolute top of his class. A colleague handed him a coveted letter of recommendation from their captain, urging him to gather signatures to recruit Forster into the Special Operations Unit. Gripping his pen, he confidently signed the document, certain that the brilliant prodigy would eagerly enter their elite ranks. However, his confident expectations shattered instantly when he received the shocking news that Gilbert had flatly refused the offer. Utterly furious that Gilbert turned down the captain's personal request, he loudly questioned if the noble was mocking them by joining the second squad instead. He seethed with indignant rage, completely bewildered after going through all the trouble of officially signing for Gilbert's recruitment. Confronting the blonde knight directly, the bespectacled man demanded to know why he would dare refuse the greatest honor the Special Operations Unit could offer. Staring blankly at the furious man, Gilbert simply stated that he only became a knight so he could eventually join the first squad. The bespectacled man gripped his practiced sword in a cold sweat, remembering how much he had bled and suffered for his current position. Clutching his hard-earned uniform crest, he deeply resented Gilbert for carelessly dismissing the value of a royal honor he had worked so desperately to seize. The Marquis glares at Gilbert, harshly stating that the young man was born with innate brilliance, obtained everything effortlessly, and knows no real hardship. He bitterly claims Gilbert never did anything gritty or muddy, yet marvels that this supposedly arrogant noble actually bowed his head and investigated on his own feet. The Marquis reflects on why he hadn't noticed this dedication before, wondering if arrogant people would truly make such a desperate face for a single young lady. Watching Gilbert relentlessly attack a training dummy, the Marquis realizes that his sure, sharp swordplay is actually backed by years of grueling, unseen training. Returning to the present, the Marquis agrees to cooperate tomorrow, confirming that the forces arresting Baron Rainish in the capital will also detain his household to prevent information leaks. Gilbert stares sharply ahead, mentally preparing to raid the Rainish baronial estate to search for concrete evidence that they murdered Sophia's parents. Driven by a desire to let Sophia return to her normal life, Gilbert urges the Marquis to hurry and finish this grim business as quickly as possible. He vows silently to restore her to a peaceful place without looking back. Meanwhile, at the estate, a shocked and furious noble yells, demanding to know the meaning of the sudden night intrusion. Royal knights confront the panicked Baron Rainish and his wife, officially announcing that arrest warrants have been issued for producing illegal goods and colluding with Count Bader's son. As a bewildered young woman cries out for her parents, the knights inform the Baron they have seized his production facilities and will interrogate him about inciting vigilante crimes. A knight approaches the stunned young woman, identifying her as Miss Bianca, while another officer clamps heavy iron cuffs onto her father's wrists. Bianca screams at the men to let her parents go, but the knight coldly reminds her that legitimate arrest warrants have been issued. The knights officially ask Bianca to accompany them to hear her side of the story regarding the severe charges levied against her family. Gilbert calculates from afar that while Bianca will lose her place in the family, she likely knows absolutely nothing about the actual incident. A subordinate suggests they cannot simply leave the displaced girl unattended, warning that someone who has lost everything might act out unpredictably. Bianca breaks down in hysterical laughter, violently mocking the knights for taking away her parents and asking if they are finally satisfied. Her eyes widen in pure, unadulterated fury as she glares at the arresting officers with murderous intent. Screaming in chaotic desperation, Bianca wildly questions why she is always the victim and demands to know how Sophia is doing. The knights remain unmoved by her breakdown, firmly stating that crimes were committed and demanding she accompany them despite her cries of unfairness. Thrashing wildly, Bianca shrieks that her parents didn't do it on purpose and fiercely denies any personal involvement in the crimes. Back in a quiet room, Gilbert gently informs Sophia that her relatives have officially been arrested. Sophia calmly admits she expected this outcome, noting the grim reality of having criminals among her kin, and learns that Kevin returned to the capital to deliver the news. Gilbert reaches out his hand, gently warning her that a dark stigma will cling to the Rainish family before suddenly asking if she will still marry him. He stares with unwavering conviction, making it absolutely clear in his mind that his bride must be Sophia and no one else. Sophia gazes back at him, her heart deeply moved as he reminds her to build her own standing regardless of her relatives' sins. Brushing aside societal standing, Gilbert announces that tomorrow they will search the Rainish baronial mansion to find evidence concerning her parents' case. Sophia tightly grips her dress, silently gathering her resolve before firmly agreeing to help them despite the raid happening earlier than planned. Looking him dead in the eye, Sophia begs him to let her join the investigation team so she can face the situation with her own hands. Tears brimming in her determined eyes, she vows to uncover the absolute truth about her family's tragic past. Standing resolute before the grand estate, the dark-clad knight glances down at Sophia and asks if she is prepared for what lies ahead. With a steely gaze and unwavering resolve, Sophia firmly confirms that she is ready. As they cross the threshold into the opulent manor, a surprised voice calls out from above, breaking the tense silence. Peering down from the staircase landing, a well-dressed man greets the unexpected arrivals with a deeply suspicious smirk. Feigning polite curiosity, the man demands to know the reason for their sudden intrusion while slyly noting Lady Sophia's presence. The knight introduces himself as Percy and sharply challenges the false rumor of Sophia's departure, while Sophia boldly steps forward to declare her intent to search the house for something important. A subordinate knight swiftly flanks the man, identifying him as Tobias, the steward left in charge of the estate during the uncle's absence. Percy coldly informs the panicked steward that their sudden intrusion is a necessary measure to preserve evidence, demanding his full cooperation. Towering over the restrained steward, Percy ominously brings up the dark events that transpired exactly 5 years ago. He relentlessly accuses Tobias of being the carriage driver on the day the previous Baron died, pointing out the suspicious roundabout route that miraculously left only the coachman alive. As the steward trembles at the sight of the knightly order's uniform, Percy confirms that their gravest suspicions have proven true. Stepping into the fray, Sophia confidently asserts that she invited the knights to her own mansion, daring the steward to question her authority after previously driving her out. Apologizing for the disturbance with a dignified, poised beauty that vividly mirrors the late Baroness, she reiterates her determination to find what she is looking for. The nervous murmurs of the gathered servants are instantly silenced when a sharp command orders everyone to assemble in the great hall. Ensuring all servants are accounted for, Percy dispatches his men to thoroughly search the mansion for a crucial audio recording, earrings, and a ring tied to the incident. Scouring the dense shelves of the library, Sophia realizes that finding small, hidden objects in even a modestly sized room will be a daunting task. Sifting through the painful memories of living with her uncles, she desperately searches her past for any slight clue that might reveal the hiding spot. The sudden arrival of a bespectacled man angrily demanding she return to her room sparks Percy's immediate interest in the study. Realizing the significance of the interruption, Sophia notes that her uncle vehemently despised her going anywhere near that specific room. Armed with this highly suspicious revelation, Percy strides past the protests and boldly throws open the heavy doors to the forbidden study. As Percy begins his sweep, Sophia directly addresses the nervous bespectacled man named Fecht, insisting that she be allowed to search the room as well. Scanning the interior, she is taken aback to discover that the once modest and elegant antique furniture has been completely replaced by intricate magical devices. Her sharp gaze quickly locks onto a peculiar, spherical lamp resting on the desk, immediately sensing that something is profoundly wrong with it. Percy notes that the device made no sound during his initial sweep, his suspicion rising as he moves in to inspect the oddity alongside her. Examining the object closely, Percy explains that while the exterior is a classic antique oil lamp, its internal core has been covertly modified into a complex magical device meant only for the baronial bloodline. He reveals that such bloodlock devices are commonly used to hide extreme secrets, though he admits he has no idea how to safely bypass its arcane circuitry to activate it. Quickly sketching out the magical schematic on a piece of parchment, Percy notices distinct gaps in the intricate information flow. Fecht reluctantly steps forward to offer his expertise, prompting Percy to hand over his notes for a closer examination of the incomplete erase. Reminded of his earlier promise to cooperate with the knights, Fecht adjusts his glasses and agrees to help decode the hidden mechanism. Having figured out the bloodlock trigger, Percy hands the heavy device to Sophia and instructs her to firmly grip and push the central mechanism to finally reveal its hidden truth. Sophia stares at the familiar sparkle of a magical diamond, feeling a deep wave of nostalgia wash over her as it begins to play a recording. Hearing her mother's voice echo from the stone, she is instantly transported back to the warm, loving memories of her childhood. As the recording plays, she listens to her mother warmly teasing her father about how he refused to let go of their daughter before going out. Hearing her father's deep reluctance to leave her alone at night, Sophia reflects on how kind and gentle her parents truly were. The audio shifts to her parents discussing finishing their evening quickly, though her mother admits to still feeling inexplicably worried about leaving her behind. Gripping Lord Gilbert's hand for support, Sophia mentally braces herself against the dark dread of uncovering the tragic truth hidden within the stone. Knowing that turning back now would only lead to more unresolved pain, she firmly nods for Lord Gilbert to continue playing the perilous recording. The recorded memory sharply shifts to her father sternly confronting his younger brother, demanding to know why he was suddenly summoned to the ball. Her father fiercely scolds his younger brother for pursuing illegal, short-sighted gains and attempting to cowardly run away from his mounting crimes. The desperate uncle screams for him to shut up, angrily arguing that the baronial family will be completely ruined if they do not act immediately. Refusing to compromise his noble morals, the Baron firmly declares that he will report his brother's rampant corruption to the Knight Order without delay. With a heavy sigh, the Baron laments that his earnest attempts to guide his younger brother back to the right path have proven utterly pointless. Driven into a desperate corner, the wicked uncle glares with sinister intent and fiercely threatens to take the Baron down with him. Turning his back on the furious threats, the Baron calmly tells his brother that things could have been different had he spoken up earlier. The audio transitions to the parents rushing back to their carriage, questioning their missing coachman Percy, who nervously claims he was feeling unwell. As the carriage lurches forward into the night, Sophia hopelessly wishes she could halt the inevitable tragedy she knows is about to unfold. Trembling with deep-seated fear over what comes next, she bravely resolves to stand her ground and face the painful truth she never knew. Suddenly, a tense confrontation breaks out within the recording as her mother sharply asks someone what they think they are doing. Oblivious to the immediate trap, her parents compassionately discuss taking in her young cousin Bianca while the carriage rumbles on. The loving parents gently fret over how shy Bianca is, wondering if the two young girls will be able to get along comfortably. Her mother lets out a soft, warm chuckle, deeply amused by her husband's endless fretting over their beloved daughter. She playfully teases her husband for being incredibly soft on Sophia, unaware that these would be some of their final peaceful moments together. A violent jolt suddenly rocks the moving carriage, instantly shattering the light-hearted atmosphere and deeply alarming the Baron. Horrified, the Baron screams out as their treacherous coachman detaches the horses, coldly confessing that he was hired by the younger brother. Realizing they are locked inside while perched on a deadly cliff, the Baron desperately rattles the door as the heavy carriage begins to slip. Knowing the end is near, her father loudly declares he will report the matter, effectively turning his final moments into undeniable evidence for the Marquis. As the sickening sound of the fatal crash echoes through the magical device, Sophia tearfully processes the cruel reality of her parents' sudden demise. A heavy, agonizing silence follows the destruction as the sheer magnitude of her uncle's betrayal completely paralyzes her. Through the fading static, her mother's weak, dying voice chokes out a desperate apology for not being able to return home to her beloved daughter. Tears streaming down her face, Sophia reaches out toward the magical stone as her mother uses her final breath to beg her to live a happy life. Overwhelmed by grief, Sophia breaks down in tears and lets out a choked sob. Collapsing to the floor, she cries out to Lord Gilbert, realizing that her parents worried about her and wished for her happiness even as their lives were unjustly taken. Tears stream endlessly down her face as she struggles to form words through her sorrow. Gilbert suddenly rushes in and pulls her into a tight embrace, completely ignoring her tearful protests that she will ruin his clothes. He holds her trembling frame securely in his dark cloak, offering a silent sanctuary for her shattered emotions. Later that night, a deeply unsettled Sophia lies awake alone in her darkened room. Staring blankly ahead, she silently wonders how much time has passed since they returned to the inn. Clutching her sheets, she realizes it is well past midnight and whispers out to her lost parents. She fiercely curls into herself, desperately repeating that everything will be all right in an attempt to self-soothe. Trying to suppress her trauma, she rationalizes that if she simply locks herself away and lets time pass, she can eventually force herself to behave normally again. A sudden voice through the door breaks her isolation, prompting her to realize that unlike her past solitary struggles, Gilbert is actually here with her now. Stunned by his presence, she silently questions why he came to check on her. Fresh tears well up in her eyes as the heavy weight of the evening's revelations crashes down on her once more. She hides her weeping face in her hands, apologizing through the door because she refuses to let him see her looking so terrible. Desperately pleading for solitude just for tonight, she promises him that she will be completely back to normal by tomorrow. Rejecting her isolation, Gilbert steps into the room and pulls back her covers, gently noting that she was awake all along despite her repeated apologies. Looking down with an expression of heavy guilt, he solemnly admits that he should have stopped the situation from unfolding. Sophia shakes her head and tells him not to apologize, insisting she is glad she heard her parents' voices since she already knew the tragic truth of what happened. Gently patting her head, Gilbert advises her to rest in town until she leaves, leaving Sophia to silently agonize over a heart that has nowhere to go. Giving her some space, he softly bids her good night and turns his back to her. Declaring his departure, he begins to walk away from the bedside. Unable to bear the sudden distance, Sophia stares at his retreating back and calls out for him to wait. Reaching out from her bed, she desperately begs him not to go. Gilbert turns around in surprise, his eyes widening as he questions what is wrong. Flustered and deeply apologetic, she confesses a sudden, terrifying feeling that he might just walk away and leave her forever. He immediately reaches out to hold her trembling hand, cutting through her frantic apologies, and claims that she is fine. Cradling her face with incredible gentleness, he softly whispers that he completely understands her fears. Brushing aside her weak protests, he vows to stay by her side for the entire night so she can finally rest easy and sleep. Settling in close to him, Sophia finds solace in his presence as he reflects that only the two of them truly understand this shared pain. Watching over her with a tender gaze, Gilbert murmurs a final blessing for her to sleep peacefully. Feeling the warmth of his body and his slightly quickened heartbeat, she takes in his familiar citrus scent. Her anxiety slowly fades away, replacing the terrifying sounds that had been ringing in her ears with a silent, heartfelt declaration of her love for Lord Gilbert. A warm, radiant vision of her smiling father and mother suddenly appears in her mind's eye. Her mother gently cradles her face, reassuring a young Sophia that everything is all right and she is never alone. The comforting presence washes over her, promising that everything will be all right. Sophia slowly flutters her eyes open, pulling herself from the depths of the comforting dream. Sitting up in her bed, she gazes thoughtfully into the distance and wonders when she last dreamed of her beloved parents. Realizing she completely overslept, she recalls the messages from the others apologizing for not greeting her before heading off to work. Deciding that staying cooped up in her room won't help, she resolves to at least get something to eat and then take a walk around town. Downstairs in the dining area, two maids excitedly gossip about their disbelief that the men accompanying her are actual knights from the capital. The women eagerly swoon over how wonderful and cool the knights looked in their perfectly neat uniforms yesterday and today. The maids continue giggling and whispering among themselves as Sophia quietly listens in. One of the maids excitedly whispers that the silver-haired man must be her lover since he clearly cares about her so deeply. The romantic maid openly admits she has been daydreaming about a valiant knight protecting his ladylove while investigating a dangerous case. The morning town rumors are buzzing with the news that a massive group of knights has swarmed the Lord's mansion. The cheerful atmosphere dims as the maids mention that the townspeople are deeply worried about what will happen to the territory. They coldly agree that things cannot possibly get any worse since the arrested lord was never a good ruler anyway. Quietly eating her breakfast, Sophia mentally ponders who will manage the territory now that her uncle has been arrested. She recalls that when a landowner disappears, the territory often becomes royal land to be awarded to a vassal or put up for auction. Strolling through the town, she looks up at a wooden sign and wonders if she can truly accept the fate of her homeland quietly. She stops in front of a quaint shop, her eyes fixed on the bright open sign hanging on the glass door. The doorbell rings cheerfully as she enters, marveling at the cute accessories and embroidery threads before being warmly welcomed by the shopkeeper. The smiling shopkeeper invites her to look around, proudly explaining that most of the framed artworks on the wall were gifted by different customers. Sophia is amazed to learn the shop has been there since her grandmother's time, preserving the beautiful works of countless people she has never met. The shopkeeper notices her staring at a specific framed embroidery and excitedly mentions that it might have been made by the previous lord's daughter. Sophia stares at the framed fabric in silent shock as the shopkeeper claims that Lady Sophia embroidered it. The shopkeeper explains that her own mother deeply cherished the piece after visiting ladies brought it to town, proudly displaying it ever since. Touching the glass gently, Sophia silently critiques the broken stitches and uneven curves of the clumsy bird design. A nostalgic memory floods back of a very young Sophia clumsily stitching that exact piece long ago while sitting happily on her mother's lap. Breaking from her reverie, Sophia politely asks if she can trace the design, to which the surprised shopkeeper happily agrees as long as she stays in the corner. Sitting at her desk, Sophia decides to copy the pattern before buying the necessary fabric and thread. She looks up to confirm if they are having dinner together tonight, to which he warmly agrees and tells her to take her time. Sophia expresses a deep desire to visit her parents' graves to pay her respects before leaving the territory, noting she cannot make the journey alone. Lord Gilbert readily agrees to accompany her, assuring her that he had already made time today even amidst his work. Gazing at her softly, he admits he genuinely wanted to see both Sophia and the territory before they returned. As they sit together by the window, they solemnly discuss the recent arrest of the corrupt local lord. They reflect on the tragic murder of her kind parents and wonder about the fate of the previous lord who was rumored to be manufacturing illegal drugs. Out in the sunlit fields, two local workers are completely stunned to see the Lanish baronial carriage rolling down the path. Watching the elegant carriage disappear down the rural path, they wonder who on earth could possibly be riding inside. The carriage finally halts, and Lord Gilbert gallantly takes Sophia's hand to help her step out into the sunlight. Standing before the quiet tombstone, Sophia softly calls out to her father and mother as a deep sense of closure washes over her. Clutching a beautiful bouquet of flowers, she steps forward and tells her parents she was finally able to come see them. Kneeling gently, she proudly reveals that she embroidered the exact same pattern they had admired all those years ago. She happily reports that her stitches are now perfectly even and she can finally draw pretty vines. Clasping her hands in earnest prayer, she asks her parents to watch over her as she prepares to state her final resolve. Turning her attention away from the grave, she softly calls out to Lord Gilbert standing faithfully by her side. He looks down at her with silent anticipation, quietly waiting to hear what her important request might be. Taking a deep, shaky breath, Sophia boldly asks for his permission to let her inherit the Lanish barony. She acknowledges that burdening him and the prestigious Forster household with such a poor territory would surely be troublesome. Desperate to protect the beloved land her parents cherished, she begs to defend it even if she must do it entirely alone. Gilbert softly notes that she purposely used the Lanish family carriage today despite knowing it would draw intense public scrutiny. Staring into her determined eyes, he realizes this bold move was her ultimate expression of resolve to become the true lord of this land. Kneeling beside her at the grave, Gilbert suddenly introduces himself to her parents as their future son-in-law. He respectfully asks for their blessing to marry their daughter, vowing to fiercely protect both her and the territory alongside her. Caressing her cheek with immense tenderness, he vows to her parents that he will protect Sophia without fail. He gently commands her to inherit the Lanish barony and proudly come to him as his beloved wife. Cupping her face, he softly promises that she will never have to give up a single precious thing in her life. Gazing deeply into her strong, beautifully radiant eyes, he declares he wants to believe in her unwavering spirit. Overwhelmed by his boundless support, she tearfully asks him to forgive her incredible selfishness. Realizing she no longer has to choose between her parents' memories and a future with Gilbert, Sophia sheds tears of pure joy at her immense fortune. Sophia kneels weeping before a grave as Gilbert firmly vows that he will no longer give up. Sophia happily waves to little Mia outside the church, prompting the child to gasp in excited recognition. Crouching down to her level, Sophia explains she came to speak with the priest and warmly asks Mia about her day. Mia looks around curiously and asks if the older brother from their previous encounter is accompanying her today. When Mia innocently asks if the imposing man beside her is her prince, Sophia blushes and proudly confirms that he is. As the little girl squeals with delight, Gilbert proudly embraces the title and declares himself grateful to be Sophia's one and only knight. Catching Sophia's flustered gaze, Gilbert flashes a gentle smile and reassures her that he simply spoke the absolute truth. An older priest suddenly approaches to apologize for his past rudeness, but Sophia quickly urges him to raise his head since she deliberately hid her identity. The priest gravely explains that he heard from the children about how the Baron family's regular donations of embroidered trinkets have completely stopped. Lowering her gaze in solemn agreement, Sophia softly confirms that the charitable deliveries have indeed ceased. Gilbert steps in to state that while the children's attachment is regrettable, resuming the donations is now impossible due to the recent incident. Sophia smiles sadly, acknowledging that to these innocent children, Bianca was simply the kind young lady who gifted them gentle embroidery. She reflects on the harsh duality of her cousin, realizing that to the uninformed townsfolk, Bianca's visible kindness was their only reality. Taking a step forward, Sophia respectfully asks the priest for permission to take over her father's charitable donations from now on. She bows her head deeply and begs for a little time, silently deciding that the dark truth of her family's crimes does not need to tarnish the children's memories. With quiet resolve, she vows to emulate her earnest father and become a lord who genuinely faces and serves her people. Her eyes shine with unwavering determination as she mentally promises to support the barony sincerely. Deeply moved by her earnest plea, the kind priest smiles warmly and gladly accepts her heartfelt offer. Looking up at the peaceful church, the priest promises that they will be eagerly waiting for her return. Later, Sophia looks out the window in absolute shock and stammers out to Lord Gilbert in disbelief. She admits she heard the rumors but never expected the Rainish family carriage to actually be running through town. Staring at the massive crowd gathered around her family's carriage, she is utterly overwhelmed by the sheer scale of the reception. Gilbert calmly assures her that Tobias and the guards will manage the crowd before instructing her to head down and face them. Her legs tremble from the immense tension, but Gilbert steps in and steadyingly offers his hand for support. Gripping his hand tightly for courage, Sophia steps out of the carriage to face the overwhelming sea of waiting townsfolk. The crowd erupts into joyous relief and warm greetings upon seeing her safe, prompting Gilbert to check on her well-being. Realizing that not a single malicious gaze exists in the massive crowd, Gilbert gently encourages her to give them a small smile. Tears prick her eyes as she flashes a radiant, heartfelt smile, realizing these people gathered purely out of care for her. When she humbly protests that she has done nothing to earn this, Gilbert explains that the desperate townsfolk are simply looking for a symbol of hope to rely on. Seeing her overwhelming acceptance by the people, Gilbert happily concludes that marrying her will face absolutely no backlash from the territory. The townspeople watch in awe as the grand welcome carriage from the Forster Marquis house arrives, realizing that Lady Sophia is already preparing to return to the capital. Before departing, Sophia turns to Alma and sincerely apologizes for deceiving her by using the alias Phi. Grasping Sophia's hands warmly, the maid quickly forgives her, assuring the young lady that her safety is what truly makes everyone happy. With a bright and cheerful smile, Alma encourages Sophia to come back and visit them anytime she wishes. Escorting her to the carriage, a dedicated knight assures Sophia that he will run on horseback right beside her, urging her to tell him immediately if anything happens. Stepping into the elegant carriage, Sophia is completely taken aback to find Karina waiting inside with a warm greeting. Karina explains that Lord Gilbert, driven by overprotective worry after recent events, specifically asked her to accompany Sophia for the long ride back. Settling into her seat, Sophia softly asks her friend if she is willing to listen to everything that has happened during her stay. Karina readily agrees with an understanding smile, noting that they have plenty of time to talk during the 2 to 3 day journey to the capital. A few days later, the pair arrives safely at the Forster domain, welcomed by Sophia's father-in-law and mother-in-law as the mansion regains its usual calm atmosphere. Walking down the grand corridor side by side, Gilbert gently reassures a nervous Sophia to simply express her will honestly. Standing before the imposing double doors of the royal chamber, Gilbert respectfully expresses his gratitude for the audience they have been granted. Entering the magnificent hall, Sophia bows deeply and respectfully addresses His Majesty. Looking down from his elevated throne, the king commands the young lady to raise her head. Waving off any troublesome formal greetings, the king smiles gently and prompts Sophia to speak the reason for her visit. Sophia apologizes for the chaos caused by her uncle and aunt, revealing that she has come to officially discuss the future of the Lainish barony. She explains that while the land is currently in ruin and without any male heirs, her upcoming marriage complicates the succession. Pressing her hands to her chest in a desperate plea, she bravely asks the king to allow her to inherit the title of Baron Lainish. The king shifts his sharp gaze toward Gilbert, questioning what the young lord thinks of his fiancée's bold request. Gilbert objectively points out that the ruined Lainish lands are not highly desirable, nor do they make a fitting reward for typical vassals. He firmly vows that the Forster house will fully support her wish, reminding the king that their domain has long absorbed territories through marriage and merit regardless of profit. Amused by Gilbert's unyielding devotion, the king officially recognizes Sophia's succession, warning her that gaining the understanding of her people will be her most important task. Overwhelmed with profound gratitude and relief, tears prick Sophia's eyes as she fervently thanks His Majesty. Meanwhile, a furious Bianca throws a massive tantrum outside a grand estate, screaming in disbelief that Sophia has been named a baron after her own miserable confinement. A stoic guard blocks her path, coldly explaining that her parents' title has been stripped and the estate now rightfully belongs to Lady Sophia. Refusing to entertain Bianca's delusional demands to enter her former home, the guard sternly warns her that she has said enough. Enraged and unhinged, Bianca violently shakes the iron gates, screaming for Sophia to come out and face her. When a bewildered servant cautiously approaches the commotion, the disgraced noblewoman proudly introduces herself as Bianca Lanish, demanding to see Sophia. Staring up at the towering mansion, Bianca seethes with intense jealousy and swears she will take her complaints to Sophia directly. Stepping into the elegant reception room, Bianca marvels at the well-kept garden and realizes Sophia is truly living in this opulent manner. Taking in the deliberate perfection of the flawless space, she bitterly wonders if Sophia was chosen to become the mistress of this beautiful home. Suddenly, Lord Gilbert appears before her, coldly declaring that the order to keep her out came directly from him. He ruthlessly explains that since her parents were condemned and stripped of their title, she has lost her noble standing and is no longer permitted inside. Shocked and enraged, Bianca glares at him as he commands her to stop using the Lanish name, reducing her to nothing more than an ordinary woman. Scoffing at her twisted sense of normalcy, Gilbert questions how she could possibly expect kindness after her cold-hearted treatment of Sophia. He mercilessly lists her cruel offenses, reminding her how she constantly belittled Sophia while tearing her dresses and stealing her belongings. Dismissing her laughable attempts to interrupt, he fiercely accuses her of trying to steal Sophia's fiancé and twisting the truth with vile lies. Screaming like a petulant child, Bianca furiously demands he stop twisting the story, bitterly blaming Sophia for having everything and refusing to share. Unfazed by her outburst, Gilbert calmly reveals his magical ability to read memories and feelings, instructing her to carefully remember how many times he has touched her. Reminding her of his past warning about forcing her values on others, he exposes the pathetic truth that she never had a single real friend to confide in. Staring her down with intense resolve, Gilbert firmly declares that Sophia is more precious to him than absolutely anything else in the world. Announcing their upcoming spring marriage and the merging of the barony into his domain, he promises to take full responsibility for Bianca's fate. The narrative coldly notes that Bianca is in no position to complain, even if she were left to wander the unforgiving streets. Shifting to recent events, Gilbert informs her that the former baron and baroness were officially stripped of their rank and sentenced to life imprisonment. In a brief flashback, Sophia firmly tells Gilbert that she wants absolutely nothing more to do with her treacherous aunt and uncle. Despite acknowledging Bianca's innocence under the law, Sophia admits the girl cannot remain at the barony and gently voices concern for her cousin's future. Sophia deeply empathizes with the terrifying anxiety of suddenly losing parental protection, having intimately known that exact pain herself. Deeply moved by her boundless compassion, Gilbert gently strokes her hair and praises her for truly facing forward despite her past trauma. Returning to the tense present, Gilbert tells Bianca she has been granted permission to live with distant winemaking relatives, urging her to find meaning as a commoner. Refusing to accept her new reality, Bianca hysterically screams that she is a baron's daughter, but Gilbert bluntly reminds her that the title is already gone forever. As a modest carriage rolls up outside the estate, he coldly informs her that she will be promptly taken away to begin her new life. In a fading childhood memory, a young Bianca bitterly complains of boredom because the adults constantly ignored her. Panicking about being dragged off to the remote countryside to live among commoners, Bianca stares blankly at the carriage in sheer disbelief. The childhood memory continues with young Bianca wandering through the sunlit garden, desperately searching for anything to entertain her isolated mind. Spotting young Sophia sitting peacefully in the grass, Bianca approaches and demands to know if what she is doing is really that interesting. Sophia happily replies that her loving parents let her read books as she pleases, highlighting the stark difference in their upbringing. Driven by a childish impulse and deep-seated envy, Bianca suddenly reaches out her hand to aggressively snatch the book away. The flashback abruptly snaps to Bianca's wide, terrified eyes as the crushing weight of her ruined future finally comes crashing down upon her. A young Bianca eagerly approaches another girl, demanding to see the book she is holding because she wants to read it too. Startled by the sudden intrusion, the other girl flinches as Bianca forcefully grabs the edge of the book. A concerned mother suddenly steps into the room, prompting Bianca to burst into tears and run into her comforting embrace. Weeping uncontrollably, Bianca clings to the woman as the mother gently calls out her name. The aristocratic mother stands tall and composed, radiating a dignified and prideful aura. She looks down with pity, softly comforting the crying child while asking what could have possibly upset her so much. Staring up at the composed woman, a dark, questioning resentment begins to brew in young Bianca's mind. In stark contrast, Sophia's mother rushes onto the scene, dropping to her knees with her dress and shoes soiled from running in sheer panic. Bianca glares coldly at her own mother, noting how she always maintains her pristine, prideful elegance regardless of the situation. A deep, burning jealousy takes root in her heart as she glares with wide, resentful eyes. She bitterly concludes that Sophia has been unfairly blessed with absolutely everything in life. She enviously recalls how Sophia possessed beautiful books, a gentle heart, and a mother who would hug her without hesitation even when she ruined things. Fast-forwarding to the tragic news of her relatives' deaths, Bianca sinisterly notes that Sophia even had a wonderful fiancé waiting for her. A twisted smile creeps across Bianca's face as she realizes her moment to strike has finally arrived. She coldly calculates that stepping into the role of the Baron's daughter will allow her to easily steal all the happiness Sophia ever possessed. Gripping her embroidery tight, Bianca stews in her resentment, convincing herself that Sophia selfishly hogged everything for herself. Smiling innocently among the townsfolk, she rationalizes that it is only fair for someone who has nothing to take a little from someone who has it all. Looking into a mirror, she reflects on how she relentlessly stole, bullied, and crushed her cousin in despair, yet ultimately failed to break her. She admits with heavy defeat that despite all her cruel efforts, Sophia still managed to boldly stand before her. Sophia appears in a radiant vision, looking far happier and more beautiful than Bianca ever could. Bitterly accepting her grim future, Bianca laments that while she will live in disgrace without even a proper dress, Sophia will only grow more radiant beside the marquis. Holding back her pathetic tears, she acknowledges her own misery but resolves to maintain whatever shred of dignity she has left. A desperate plea echoes out toward a departing carriage, begging for just one final chance. Suddenly, an erratic Albert bursts onto the scene, frantically demanding that they let him see Sophia. Meanwhile, a royal aide hands Gilbert a thick dossier containing newly gathered intelligence on the Rhaenish barony. Surprised by the sudden request, the aide questions the timing, prompting Gilbert to firmly state that he needs to thoroughly grasp the current state of the territory.